smile reminded me of a horror movie villain. I got a really bad vibe from this guy and
Yeah, the only reason why you got a bad vibe from this dude was because he's out to smash your girlfriend. What it is, guys, it's your boy BlastphamousHD. Today we are here to check out something you guys have been trying to get me to watch for the longest time. It is more animated horror stories. It is by Mr. No Sleep. If you guys want to watch the original video, the link's in the description down below. Make sure to go check them out. Make sure to go subscribe to them. And before further ado, we off up in this mug.
It was the summer of 2018. I had recently graduated college with two of my good friends, John and Haley. John had been a close friend my whole life, and I met Haley in one of my college classes. I had a crush on Haley since I met her. She was a beautiful girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, and a small, petite figure. I always wondered what a girl like her was doing single. Haley suggested that John and I join her for a few days in New York City. She said it would be a great way to blow off some steam before we got started with our real jobs.
Oh, you hear that? She said steam. She's trying to either get a Cleveland steamer or she's trying to get the choo-choo ran on her. Definitely one of them. Hit her with the choo-choo.
John and I found really cheap airline tickets and a reasonably priced Airbnb in Midtown New York City, and we decided to go. We planned on staying for 3 nights, but little did I know, we would be back after just 1 night. We had just arrived to our Airbnb from the airport. The sun was just beginning to set on the New York City skyline. The view was incredible from the high-rise condo we were staying in. I wasn't used to big cities, so everything seemed a bit overwhelming. Since we arrived at our Airbnb, Haley had been on her phone most of the time. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me it was none of my business. I glanced over her shoulder, and before she could shield her phone, I saw the Tinder logo. I said, "Come on, Haley, really? A girl like you shouldn't be on Tinder."
Yeah, bro, you ain't know what it was. That's sad, bro. Homie don't know about female nature. Just let her do her and, get your bid in if it can fit in. You know what I'm saying?
She said, "I'm just messing around and it's harmless anyways." I told her, "You have to be careful. There's a lot of creeps on there." Who knew that those words would foreshadow what was to come? After dinner, Haley suggested we all go out. She said she knew of an upscale 2-story club downtown. I said,
"Bruh, the only reason why she went on that trip with y'all was to smash. One of y'all or both of y'all, you dropped the ball. Unfortunately not inside of her court like she planned it, so she jumped on Tinder. That's your bag. Definitely your bad."
"How do you even know of a club when this is your first time in New York City?" Haley said, "I saw some good reviews online." I said, "Sure.
This ain't her first time in New York,
I
stupid."
bet your newfound Tinder boyfriend said to go to this club." Haley laughed and said, "Okay, maybe you're right, but I think we should still go. He seemed like a cool guy, and if he isn't, we can just leave." I knew Haley was going to have her way regardless, so I didn't even try and argue with her. I said, "Okay, fine. We will go to this club, but if he is sketchy, we are leaving right away." The club was about a mile away, so we decided to walk. As we got close,
Oh my God, bruh, be careful. Lest you mess around and end up as the dude who's chauffeuring your crush to the club to get D'd down by a different dude when they more than likely paid for her trip out there, bruh. Come on, son. And it's funny too, because I can't even fault the female in this, bro. She threw it at you, that's why she took y'all out there, but y'all ain't catch it what she threw, so she threw it elsewhere.
closer to the nightclub, we started to hear the bass. We rounded a corner and saw a line of about 20 people waiting to get into the club. The exterior of the nightclub was all brick and had green vines running down the side. I glanced at the club's windows and saw bright neon flashing lights. I could also make out the dancing silhouettes of partygoers. Even though there were only about 20 people in line, it seemed like they weren't letting anyone in. Every couple minutes, someone would walk up, skip the line, and go right in. I thought they must be well connected to completely skip the line to a premier nightclub. Maybe politicians or rich business owners, I thought to myself. As I was in line, something caught my eye through one of the second-floor windows. I saw someone's head pressed up against the glass. The windows were tinted, so I couldn't make out any details, but it seemed like the person was looking in my direction. I thought maybe the person was looking for a friend who was stuck in line. I glanced away and looked back at the window, and the person was gone. After waiting for what seemed like forever, we finally made it inside the club. The area was crowded, but not as packed as I thought. There were 2 bars on the right and left side of the club on the first floor. On the far end of the club, There were 2 spiral staircases leading to the second floor. The second floor wrapped around the entire nightclub and overlooked the dance floor. Haley suggested that we get some drinks before it gets too crowded. John and I agreed and followed her to the bar. As we were walking to the bar, I made eye contact with a guy on the second floor. He was leaning against the railing facing my direction. He seemed very scrawny and pale. He had a bowl cut, and his hair was parted down the middle of his forehead. I kept holding eye contact with him. As we held stares, he slowly started to smile at me. His smile got bigger and bigger. His smile got so big, I could make out every tooth in his mouth. As he smiled at me, he pointed at himself, and then he pointed towards the bar. I looked over to where he was pointing, and I realized it was exactly where Haley was standing. I looked back at him, but he was gone. Chills ran down my...
What's this nigga, Batman? There's no instant transmission from Dragon Ball Z? Is that what that is? We have a cloak of invisibility from Harry Potter.
Adrenaline began to flow through me like a fire hose.
This dude does look
His
like Harry
appearance
Potter.
and creepy smile reminded me of a horror movie villain. I got a really bad vibe from this guy and
Yeah, the only reason why you got a bad vibe from this dude was because he was about to smash your girlfriend.
wanted to leave immediately. I pulled John aside and told him what had just happened. John said not to worry about it and that the guy was probably just trying to mess with me. I told John this time it's different and that I know when someone is just messing around. I told John not to tell Haley about what had just happened. I didn't want her to freak out. I went up to Haley and said, maybe we should check out another bar or club. She said, no way. We just waited in line for 30 minutes. Let's at least get a couple of drinks and chill out for a bit. I thought to myself, maybe the creepy guy I saw was the same guy Haley was talking to on Tinder. I asked Haley if her Tinder guy was here. Haley said, the guy told me he was here, but he hasn't been responding to my messages. I asked Haley if I could take a look at his Tinder profile. She laughed and asked me if I was jealous. I said, just let me see his page. Haley was reluctant at first, but she finally agreed and handed me her phone. She noticed the stressed out look on my face. She laughed and said, man, this Tinder guy has you really stressed out, huh? I ignored her. After taking a look at Haley's Tinder guy, I realized he wasn't the creepy guy I saw earlier. The Tinder guy was a buff New York City firefighter. I handed the phone back to Haley, and she got in line to order a drink. Now I didn't know what to think. Was this all just a misunderstanding? Was this creepy guy just looking at someone else and not me? Maybe one of his friends? After thinking about the situation, I knew he had to have been looking at me.
You
But how did
jealous,
this
bruh?
creep know Haley, or me for that matter? As I looked around, I noticed the club was significantly more crowded. It was getting harder to move around. My mind went to Haley again. I glanced around, and I didn't see Haley anywhere. I started to get really anxious. Right before I started to panic, I saw the back of Haley's head some distance away at the front of the bar. I sighed in relief. Finally, Haley made it back to us with a few drinks in her hands. As she was walking up to us, I knew something wasn't right. Haley had a pale look to her face, like she saw a ghost or something. I asked her, what's up? What happened to you? She started breaking down crying. I grabbed her and pulled her into my arms. I said, everything's going to be okay.
Bruh, the life of an orbiter, man. Just, oh my goodness.
Tell me exactly what happened. She said, I heard some guy say my name in a really creepy voice. He said, Haley. It sounded so close, as if he was standing just a foot away from me. There were so many people around me I couldn't figure out who it was. At first, I thought it was just you messing with me, but then I saw you standing way over here. I knew it couldn't be you. All of a sudden, Haley's phone started lighting up with Tinder notifications. She began reading them and said, oh my God. I said, what's wrong? She said, read this. The Tinder firefighter guy said his account had been hacked and that all the messages that had been sent to Haley were not from him. We all agreed we needed to leave as fast as possible. We bolted from the nightclub and quickly waved down a taxi. We headed immediately back to our Airbnb. A huge sense of relief filled my body. My heart rate started to...
Yeah, because your female ain't in danger of getting impregnated by someone else. But she probably is definitely impregnated by someone else. At least by now.
slow down, and I started to feel normal. I was so glad to be out of that place. We arrived at the main lobby of our Airbnb. I pressed the button for the elevator, and we all got in. I saw a Snapchat notification pop up on Haley's phone. Haley looked down at her phone, and I saw the same ghostly look come across her face again. I thought to myself, oh no, what now? She said, oh my God, I totally forgot I added the Tinder guy on Snapchat before we went out. I asked Haley if she had her location on. She said, "Yes, I do. Why?" I said, "That creep knows where we were staying and knows we are right." Before I could even finish my sentence, the elevator doors opened and my heart dropped. Right in front of us was the same creepy guy at the nightclub. He was staring right at us, that same fanatical smile across his pale face. He said, "Why did you guys leave in such a hurry? We were just starting to have fun."
That's bullcrap. You mean to tell me there's an unarmed dude standing in front of me with no gun or knife and he just gonna talk some shit? Word? I would love to say that that's not a situation I've had to deal with before, but I have. And it has always been hilarious at best, or at least. It's so funny.
This happened 4 years ago when I was still in high school. I was told to do my last delivery of my shift. I got in my car, which was a 1999 Camry, perfect for delivering pizzas.
It really is.
I GPSed the address on my phone. I live upstate in the country, so all pizza deliveries were long drives. I remember the sun was starting to set, so it was probably around 7 o'clock. I'd say after a good 15 minutes of driving through the foresty dirt roads, my GPS said I had arrived. It was an old little cottage-like house made almost entirely of wood. It was sitting all by itself in the middle of absolutely nothing but forest. The lawn was completely unkept, as the grass was almost at knee height. I was used to this kind of thing, so I didn't think much of it. I took the pizza to the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked loudly on the door. Within 10 seconds, I heard the sound of footsteps hitting wood on the inside of the house. The footsteps made it to the door and stopped. I started to feel uneasy. I got the feeling that I was being watched. And that's when I noticed there was a peephole in the door. "It's the pizza guy," I called out. I heard a low, harsh-sounding voice on the other side of the door, telling me to bring the pizza out back. I didn't like the idea of going back there. Something didn't seem right.
Pistol? You feel me? You gotta keep the strap on you. I used to be a pizza guy, actually, and at least 2 times, someone almost got beaten with their own pizza.
"Are you sure, sir?" I called out. He didn't answer my question. The sound of footsteps didn't move away from the door, so I had the feeling he was still watching me. I almost found myself walking back to my car, but I decided I didn't want any trouble with my boss. The last time I brought a pizza back, he gave me attitude, so I reluctantly walked through the uncut grass and around the small house to the back. I remember there was a shed and a little patio back there. In the patio, there was a table with 4 chairs surrounding it. In one of the chairs, facing away from me, I saw the head of somebody sitting in the seat. I began walking over and said, "Excuse me," but the person didn't even move an inch. "Excuse me," I said again louder. Then from behind me, I heard, "Psst, over here." I turned around to see a man poking his head out from the corner of the house, looking at me with a crazed smile. "Come over here, I want to show you something."
Yep, you're gonna see it real close when I shoot you in your goddamn kneecap, because below the waist is not attempted murder. Don't ask me why I know that. Woo!
I freaked out, turned around, and ran around the house in the opposite direction, back to my car, for some reason still holding
we ain't even gonna talk about a little grudge chick swinging on a swing set.
the pizza. I got in my car, started it, and got away from there. On my way back to the pizzeria, I pulled over to the side of the road and called the police. Eventually, I was informed that there was no sign of anybody having been in that house for a long time. I quit my delivery job a few days after that. I have no idea what would have happened to me had I gone up to that man, but to this day, I still wish I had just turned my head to see who or what was sitting in that patio chair.
See, and that's what makes Llama Art so good at his animations, man. I swear to God, because that dead body, it looks like it's staring directly into your freaking soul.
It was during a blizzard in Valley Stream. I was getting paid $250 to watch some couple's kid while they went away for the weekend. His name was Matthew. This took place on the first night, which was a Friday night.
That's good money.
Matthew was already supposedly asleep while I was in the living room watching a movie. I got a knock at the door and looked at the clock. It was close to midnight.
No.
There was no way I was opening it.
Ooh, I had that happen to me, bro. I had these two try to rob me at my old apartment. I'm gonna tell y'all the story at the end of this video. That's literally a real life scary story for me, because I was living in the projects at the time, and it was like maybe like 4 months before I had ever started making YouTube videos. Bruh.
Not even 10 seconds later, I heard the sound of 2 or 3 men angrily banging on the door, telling me to open up. I felt like my heart was about to stop.
I'm going out the window. I'm going out the window.
I took through the blinds, and there was somebody standing right on the other side of the window.
Oh, God! Oh, God! Mother! Oh! 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 Oh!
I fell back in fear.
No.
And after managing to get back on my feet, I ran to the kitchen phone first thing to call the police. They said because of the weather,
I jumped scared so bad I knocked my camera off the thing, bruh.
I was told to take the child and hide somewhere until an officer arrived.
Look,
They wanted to
you take the child, use him as bait, throw him out there. People like kids, they're tender. Not my kid.
keep me on the line, but I wasn't thinking clearly in the heat of the moment and hung up. However, it wasn't until I ran through the living room that I realized the banging had stopped. I took a second peek through the living room window. Nobody was there now. I heard the sound of glass shattering from a few rooms over. My knees started to feel weak as I realized they had just broken the window and were about to climb into the house. I had to run and get Matthew. I couldn't just leave without him. Of course, when I got upstairs, there was no time left to run back downstairs, as I already heard footsteps and laughter coming from downstairs. I covered Matthew's mouth with my hand as I ran with him into his toy closet. A few minutes dragged on to what felt like half an hour as we sat there in the dark closet. Matthew began to squeal as footsteps on the carpet reached the outside of his bedroom door. There was more than one person. They came inside. There weren't many places to hide in this room. I was actually reflecting on my whole life, so sure I was gonna die. We heard the sound of a police siren outside, even from in the closet, and then I heard one of the men in the room mutter, "Aw, shit." I opened the door back up as I heard at least 3 pairs of footsteps hurriedly rushing down the stairs. They didn't get far, as the police later found their footprints in the backyard, leading to our shed. There were 5 men in total, and they were all arrested.
Damn, Nat. That's real.
This happened when I was 15 years old. My best friend Anthony wanted me to come over for the night, since his parents would be gone all weekend. I rode my bike over and put it in his backyard before letting myself in through his back door. We played basically every video game he had, from FIFA all the way to Call of Duty, with popcorn and other junk food spilled out all over the floor. As the night progressed, we moved from video games to watching half a movie and getting bored, to doing prank calls at close to 10 o'clock.
I love that shit.
Anthony made a few calls to different pizza places. When it was my turn, I just dialed a few random numbers in hopes to get someone at their house. On, say, my 4th attempt, I finally reached somebody. A guy with a deep and rough voice picked up, answering with a yeah instead of a hello. Anthony's laughing in the background made me stumble with my words mid-sentence, ultimately cracking up into laughter. I had never done a prank call, so I sucked at it. The guy on the other end was silent. I regained a straight face.
Y'all can't hear it, but I just farted out of fear. We're gonna edit that out.
Sir, would it be alright if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car? What's your name, kid? My name is Bob. Really? You sure it's not Anthony? It hit me like a brick. I looked up at Anthony, whose face was noticeably full of fear. I hung up the phone, not wanting to be on the line with whoever that was for another second. Anthony, who the hell was that? I asked him. I don't know, he told me. Does your caller ID info display your name or something? No, it shows my dad's name. We hopped on the computer and did some research, trying to figure out how it was possible to get someone's name through their phone number. It didn't make sense how he could get Anthony's name so quickly. He was way too young at the time to be on any of those personal information sharing websites. We ended up asking a question on Yahoo Answers, since no one had a similar experience. The question turned up no answers. I suggested he call his dad, but he said he wasn't supposed to have anybody over for the weekend, so he didn't want to call. We planned on sleeping in the living room, so we just resumed watching the movie that we hadn't finished from earlier. Right after the phone call had left my mind, me and Anthony looked at each other when we heard his front storm door opening, and then the doorknob to the front door began to turn. It only was able to turn about halfway before the lock restricted it. Anthony turned off the TV, and I went over to the window to see who it was.
No.
I spread the blinds open. There was a tall guy standing outside. He noticed the blinds moving and turned to look at me. I practically threw the blinds back into
I don't like this.
place. Me and Anthony hid in the kitchen, listening for any more noises. We heard the sound of the gate to the backyard opening, as it was right outside the kitchen window. "God damn it," I said. "I forgot to shut the back door." Anthony urged me to run and shut it. I made it to the hallway leading to his back door and froze. There was a silhouette standing outside the back door. I don't think he noticed me, but he was surely looking into the house. He opened the door and stepped inside.
No, hell no.
I tiptoed to the kitchen and motioned for Anthony to follow me upstairs. We made it to his room as quietly as possible, pulling the door shut to avoid making any noise. We crawled under his bed. He had cloth covering the bottom of his bed, so you couldn't see anything under it unless you actually moved the cloth. The doors downstairs all opened, each one getting closer to the stairs. Thumps finally began up the stairs, and he was right outside the door now. The door to the room opened. I could hear Anthony's breathing. It was too loud.
Nigga!
Footsteps moved over to the closet, and then the closet opened. I could hear the coat hangers being slid around as the fabric of the jackets and coats rubbed against each other. Footsteps moved over to the bed and stopped. I felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Anthony's breathing was too loud.
You kill him immediately. You kill your best friend right there. If I'm ever in a situation and some people are chasing me and the nigga next to me, regardless of who, family, friendship, or who it is, if he starts breathing loud, I will slit his throat myself.
I had to cover his mouth with my hand. Nothing but silence in the room now. We laid still for so long, I almost thought he wasn't even in the room anymore.
I don't want this.
I moved my hand away from Anthony's mouth and whispered in his ear, "You think we can make a run for it?"
I don't know. I'd be so scared, I'd probably get ass naked and jump from up under the bed and just start beating off ferociously. I don't know. Anything to scare somebody away.
He was about to answer when the most disturbing, memory-haunting scream I'd ever heard filled my ears as Anthony was seemingly dragged out from under the bed.
Better him than me!
I crawled out and saw him struggling with the man. I desperately looked around for anything to use as a weapon.
I'd have desperately looked around for an open window or a door to run out of. Every man for himself, Anthony! It's been a good 10 years!
I settled with the screwdriver sitting on his nightstand. I hurried over to the man and drove the screwdriver into his back. He let go of Anthony as he let out a scream of agony, giving us time to get the hell out of the house. Running onto the road would give away our position too easily. It would take too long to make it to his neighbor's house. We dove for the tree line in the woods and took cover behind a bush, watching the house. The back door opened as the man stepped outside, looking around the backyard. He then looked out to the woods. I felt his eyes pass me as he scanned through the tree line. It seemed that it was too dark for him to see us. Then, he turned his head back in our direction. I ducked behind the bush. "Joe, he's coming." "What?" "Dude, get up, we gotta run." He was right. The man was approaching us fast. How could he have seen us? We ran through the woods with the leaves crunching under us, giving away our position. When Anthony tripped over something, I crouched down.
I'm telling you, Anthony is a liability, bruh. There ain't that much friendship in the world.
With him, hoping we had run far enough.
Nope.
Not even 20 seconds later, oncoming footsteps from the direction we were running from came fast.
Anthony is on his own.
They slowed down only 2 trees away from us as we lay face down in the leaves. Moments later, the footsteps take off in another direction. We waited until we could no longer hear them and took off back in the direction of the house. While running, over the sound of leaves crushing and my heavy breathing, I could swear I heard leaves crushing from behind us. We made it back to his backyard, into his house, and this time remembering to shut the back door. We were now able to call the police. Anthony stayed on the line with them, while I patrolled the back windows, making sure nobody was out there. It was so dark though, I couldn't see anything. So I did something that seems stupid today. I turned on his backyard lights, and immediately in the distance, over by the woods, I saw him, standing in front of a big tree. He turned off back into the woods and disappeared out of sight. That was the last time me or Anthony ever saw him. I would be lying if I told you we heard the occasional knocks at our windows or something cliche. No, that was it. 5 years have passed and nothing has happened. Do I wonder if it was somehow linked to the prank call? Maybe. Does it make sense? Not really. But yeah, this was the story of how me and my still best friend Anthony almost died during a break-in.
So, let me hook y'all up with this quick little story. Bruh, so look, so this happened to me like, I want to say like maybe 4 years ago. I was living at University Park Apartments on Maryland Parkway and Flamingo, or at least really close to there. Anybody who's ever lived there knows that the place is like really, really, really ratchet. Like it's damn near the projects. I know a guy who got shot 8 times, I think, on his porch because he got into an argument with a guy the night before. That was literally one apartment down from mine. Another guy got shot at maybe 2 or 3 times right in front of my door. And they found a guy in 2 different parked cars. And by that I mean they had chopped him into pieces and put him in like different cars on different parts of the apartment complex. You can say this was a pretty bad area. It was about 3 a.m., yo, and I stay up all night for the most part, right? So on this night in particular, I was up playing video games and I was just having a good time in my drawers, man. Y'all already know what to do. I get a knock on my door. Don't ask me why. Loud knocks freak me the hell out, but they just freaking do. And so I'm like, who is it? And the person behind the door says to me, I'm here. I just bleeped out, you know, that name because that's my sister's legitimate name. Now that sister in particular, at that time was heavy into drugs. So anyone who knew my sister should not have known where I lived at. I took extreme precautions for my sister never to find out where I lived at. So you can imagine that when someone at 3 a.m. says, oh, we know your sister who is heavy into drugs and has robbed people and done a bunch of crazy stuff before, I did probably the dumbest thing that I could have done in the situation. I opened the door. Now, I'm not gonna lie to y'all and say I wasn't scared. I didn't have any weapons. I just don't like being put in precarious situations. So I was basically taught from where I lived at and all the situations I've been in is to basically meet every precariously dangerous situation with like even more anger or something. It's something. So basically to face it head on, right? So I opened up the door. Now, I was scared, okay? They probably didn't know that, but I was shaking in my drawers, which is the only thing I had on, right? You know, I'm puffed up. I'm trying to look as big as possible. And I'm like, what's up? It's at that point that I notice it's not one dude. It's 2 dudes. The dude who knocked on the door was wearing a trench coat with a hoodie on, which made no sense because this is Vegas and it's hot. It is really, really hot. It was summertime and it was like 90 degrees outside. The dude behind him is wearing a wife beater. buff as olive and shit, bald, possibly a skinhead, I don't know. It just did not look or sound right. When I opened the door, they looked super duper nervous. And me, I'm nervous because they looking like they own some of that, you know what I mean, home invasion type shit. So I'm like, yo, what's up? And now that I think about it, this was probably either the smartest thing I could have done or either the dumbest thing I could have done. Because in their eyes, if a dude at 3 a.m. opens up his door and is mad aggressive at them, even though there's two of them and one of them is huge, I've got to know something that they don't. I probably look like I got all the pistols and or gangbanger friends in the back room, which is probably why they started apologizing so profusely, which is another alarm bell for me, because why are you apologizing? You ain't do nothing, right? If you really know my sister the way you say you know my sister, and or you're just showing up because you're, you know, you want to see where my sister is because they said, yo, we're here looking for, which makes no sense because my sister did not know my address. And even if she did, why would she send two trench coat, freaking wife beater buff looking dudes at 3 a.m. here looking for me? Like, best case scenario, they were drug dealers that she owed them money and they were coming to one of the addresses that they got from her or someone else to where she could have been at to collect money, which is, again, not better. It's still freaking bad. And they do that. If you don't have their money, they start going to your family's houses to look for your money. I used to live in areas, I've witnessed a bunch of this type of stuff happening. So I'm standing there and, you know, me, I'm in fight or flight, you know, and I didn't really have any place to run. There's no back doors in these apartments. The windows are all barred up. You know, what am I gonna do? I'm not just gonna turn around and let you have at it. You feel me? That's what happens in prison. I'm not in jail. Luckily enough for me, I guess the fact that I was so confidently angry and like aggressive towards them in my draws, it freaked them out enough as the words are like, this is not the house to rob. This is not the place to come back to. This is not the right one. We need weaker human to rob. So I forgot what they said when they left, because they left. I was freaking, you know what I mean? In my mind, I'm freaking out. I've got to hold composure. A lot of people think that when you live in the hood and when you're dealing with these type of situations, that you feel good doing it and it's easy. It's not. No matter how many of these dangerous situations you get put in, it's always fear. But when you live in the areas that I grew up in, you kind of learn to use fear as a sort of superpower to get you to do shit you know that you normally and rationally don't have the courage to do. That's why it's so funny to me whenever I see these rap videos and people like, yeah, man, I'm in the hood and I got the gat on me and the strap and I love this stuff. Like, no, nigga, there ain't no love. Niggas ain't in the hood because they wanna be. Niggas in the hood because rent is like double in the suburbs. Shit, if not 4 times that. You know what I mean? Needless to say, they rode out. I was scared for like a full-on 3 weeks after that because I thought that they were gonna go get more people and come back, but they never did. I never saw those guys again. The guys looked so freaking mean. That's what it was. If you're looking for my sister at 3 a.m. in the morning, there's no reason to be mean mugging as hard as those guys were at 3 a.m. in the morning, knocking on supposedly their friend's brother's door. That makes no sense. You know what I mean? Take it from me, man. Living in the hood sucks, bruh. When you get money, get the hell out. You see, I'm in the suburbs now. That's real. Shit, so if you do get money and you live in the hood, leave and change all your friends. Don't be friends with nobody who ain't trying to come up the same way you is. You know what I'm saying? Because all you is, if you stay in the hood and you get money, is a lick. Or a sucker. In which case, suckers are meant to be licked. So you're still a lick, just slower and more wet. Yeah, that crap happened. I've got so many stories of stuff like that happening to me while living in the projects. I used to live in Joshua Village projects, and dude, there was a guy who was smashing, who I'm almost ashamed to say he was smashing my sister, and he was shermed out and had a gun on him. and apparently some people were looking for him. And God, Jesus. I'll tell y'all that story. I don't know, man. Sometime later, man. I'll tell y'all that story later, man. But I'm glad that I wasn't put in a situation where I would have had to grab their penises and pull, because these niggas, the nigga in back was way bigger than me. I don't know what I would have had. I didn't have no weapons on me. You feel me? I basically bluffed. Dude, I've bluffed my way out of being shot at least 5 times, yo. And I'm not even joking. I remember one guy pulled a gun on me on the bus on Maryland Parkway because my little brother stepped on his shoe. He started, like, you know, with that thug woofing at my brother, and I'm like, yo, that's my little brother. He stepped on your shoe, you know, his bad, but you not gonna, you know, aggressively come at my brother like that. What's up? And he pulled his gun out of his backpack, and I immediately started apologizing to that guy because he already had the gun out. What can I do? You know what I mean? Weirdly enough, I don't know how I was able to, but I literally was able to become friends with him in that situation at that moment. And then some other guy tried to pick on my little brother, and then that guy who just wanted to shoot me, like literally 4 minutes before, tried to fight that guy in front of his 2 kids. That's another story that I haven't told you guys. That I have so many stories that I'm remembering the stories. I need to start telling y'all stories, bro, because I got so many of them, and and whenever I get around a whole bunch of people, especially like white people, especially YouTubers and shit, and it's not no racist shit, but like white people who grow up in these type of areas, they don't never have those type of situations, luckily enough, like, because they're smart enough to stay the hell out of those areas. But you know me, I couldn't, because I didn't have no cheddar when I was younger, so I have a lot of these stories, man. And the worst thing, dude, so with that being said, man, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to Llama Arts. This is like an hour-long video, man. This was not on purpose.
When I was a junior in high school, I had to take an emergency trip to the bathroom.
Oh.
My stomach was really upset. I definitely had some sort of stomach bug going on.
Oh, I got one of these stories.
As I was dashing through the hallway, trying to make it to the bathroom in time, I started to hear a whistling sound that was coming from the other side of the hallway. As I got closer to the bathroom, I realized that whoever was whistling was in the bathroom. I didn't think much of it, other than that it was a slight inconvenience for me, as I was wanting the bathroom all to myself, considering I was literally going to blow the toilet up. I ran to the stall and did my business uncomfortably. The entire time, that man that I barely even saw, might I add, stayed in the bathroom. I must have been in there for like 10 minutes at this point, and there's no telling how long he would have been in there beforehand. I started to think that it was probably the school janitor, but I really wanted him to leave for obvious reasons. I wanted some privacy. The whole time he was whistling and humming while I was mitts going number 2.
Oh.
Gross, I know, but this is what happened.
Nothing worse when you're number 2 in it.
After I finished up in the stall, I walked out to wash my hands real quickly, all while trying not to make eye contact with the man that was in the bathroom with me, as I was kind of embarrassed.
You don't want to make eye contact with that one.
I also had to hurry back to class because if I were to be gone for too long, it's very well possible I could have gotten into some trouble. Then what happened next threw me off guard completely. The janitor then started walking over towards my direction, and he stopped after being no more than a foot away from me. He was so close that I could feel him breathing on me. I felt a tingle on the back of my neck, and I was so uncomfortable that I had no other option other than to look at him.
Punch you in your mouth, man.
What the heck, man? I said.
You good?
He had this stone-cold look on his face, and then shortly after, he gave me this extremely disturbing-looking smile that I will never forget.
Dolphin teeth. Oh, no.
I made my way back to class, and I was puzzled.
Cheddar cheese.
All I could think was that guy was crazy.
His teeth is very cheesy.
I texted my friend about it when I got back to class, and he told me how he had a similar situation with that guy, the same exact janitor. He told me he knew he was a creep too, so we planned on talking to the principal about him that day, but we never ended up following through with that.
I don't do creeps,
After
man.
school, me and that same friend I was just talking about, LOIS, and another one of our close friends, Peyton, all decided to walk after school.
That
was something that we did a lot.
Awesome people.
Usually we would go to nearby restaurants or fast food chains or even the park. We did all kinds of stuff after school, and usually it was the most fun we would ever have. This day, we decided we were going to go to this diner that we all loved. We had to walk through this trail that started on school grounds and opened back up in a nearby neighborhood in order to get to this restaurant.
I enjoy trail mix.
Well, we didn't have to take that way, but it was definitely quicker and a way more fun route, so 90% of the days we walked after school, we would take the trails. Elias and I started talking about that creepy janitor, and Peyton started to chime in as well. He knew the janitor that we were talking about, but he never had an experience with him. We were telling Peyton just how creepy that guy was, and he started to understand.
Did he show you his gooch?
I kid you not, though. It was like us talking about him. The janitor spawned him there or something.
Word?
Not literally, but it was like crazily ironic and weird. Up in the distance, we noticed that there was a man ahead. No way, Peyton said. Dude, isn't that him? The janitor from school? We all stood in fear and confusingly looked at him until we could all make out that it was him for 100% certainty.
Punch him right in the holes in his teeth.
Hey, let's turn around, Peyton said. I didn't even say anything to that. I just continued moving forward, as did Elias. As we were walking past him, he then stopped and stared at us, but we kept walking. The janitor then yelled for us and asked if we would like to hang out.
What?
Okay, so not only was this man a janitor at our school and supposed to be an authority figure, but he was really a creep.
I had this happen to me, yep.
He also had to have been at least 55 years old. Why the heck would he want to hang out with a bunch of kids our age for?
Yup,
We just ignored him and we picked up our pace a little bit. But he then started jogging towards us, and it was at this point that we started to full-on run.
You better call Skee's handsome.
He then began screaming at us, and when I looked back, I saw that he had a knife in one of his hands.
Damn.
We all screamed for help and ran for at least 5 minutes, and shortly after that, we seemed to have lost him. We later found out about who he really was the next day at school. Me, Elias, and Peyton, and our parents all went up to the school and reported the situation to the police and to the principal. It turned out that the school had no idea who this man was and that he wasn't a school janitor. He was a man pretending to be a janitor.
Really?
I don't know how he got away with this, like getting inside the school and all without being detected for so long.
He cleaned for free.
It's quite ridiculous and scary if you ask me. They really need to double down on security because school is supposed to be a safe place for kids to learn. It turned out that the man was a convicted sex offender as well, and that he has been abusing minors for years now.
Ooh.
He also had a court order to where he had to stay a certain distance away from kids, but that didn't stop him.
Ew.
I personally think he was going to take it a step further this time and try to kill one of us.
Bro,
Some people are so messed up in the head, I can't even begin to comprehend.
That's hella weird.
It was just another normal day of school. I think I was in 10th grade. I want to say it was right after 3rd hour. Anyways, it was lunchtime, so my friends and I were goofing off like we always would.
Your friend drawn ugly?
We would all eat for maybe 5 minutes and spend the rest of the 20 minutes playing games and messing around and such.
I thought they were snorting
Well,
coke.
about halfway through lunch, the PA went off and said that we were having an emergency lockdown, which was definitely kind of scary.
Lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow
they're doing
lockdown
a freak
procedures.
nick?
Go into the
A
nearest
lockdown
room or
is when they
building,
lock the
door
classroom
turn
and
off
everybody in
all
there gets to dance to
Because
music.
usually, if it
They
were
go on
just a
field
drill,
trip.
then the principal would say that, or at least warn us before so we knew to expect a lockdown in the near future. I vividly remember Mr. Harrison sounding a bit panicked when he announced the lockdown too. My friends kind of thought that was part of his gig to make it seem real, but I had a bad feeling about it. Now, this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, and I still honestly have no clue why we did this, but after they shut the school's power off, my friends thought it would be funny to sneak out of the cafeteria through a side entrance that led upstairs to one of the main hallways of our school. I decided to tag along with them just because. I'm not really sure, I just did. After walking around for a little bit, we all split up, and at this point it was only me and Andrew. Our 3 other friends ventured off by themselves somewhere. It was so dark in the hallways that we could barely even see what was in front of us.
Word.
The only source of light we had was coming from the sun shining through the windows.
Sun can be
But even
good.
then, it was a pretty cloudy day, so the outside didn't have much light to offer us.
Oh.
Then out of nowhere, we heard 3 gunshots right in a row,
Oh,
followed
hell
by
no.
screaming.
Oh no. Ooh.
Andrew and I, of course, started freaking out, so we ran outside and sprinted as fast as we could.
Yup, gotta get up out of that one.
I'm happy we were close to the main entrance of the
that
school
how y'all
because I'd
run?
much rather have been outside than hiding in a bathroom or something. But now we were in the front of the school, and we knew we were sitting ducks for any of the teachers or police to find us.
Yep, they're about to quack y'all ass.
We didn't want to get in trouble for sneaking off when we shouldn't have been, so we ran behind the school and headed straight for the woods.
Yep.
We had to run across the soccer field to get there, but we made it across without being seen.
That shit look like Zelda.
Then we heard police sirens getting closer. I knew they were there for whoever the hell just fired the gun, but we were still paranoid that the school or police were looking for us for running off as well.
You going to jail now?
I've had friends who have gotten into some trouble for truancy before, and I was definitely on edge about everything that was happening in general, as any normal person would be.
I like that word, truancy.
This was a pretty serious situation, so we were freaking out for a while, and we were trying to calm each other down.
Y'all freaking out?
We also didn't want the police or anyone to think we had anything to do with that psycho with a gun. Well, the police weren't searching for us, and they literally had no idea we were missing in the first place, nor did anyone in the school. But we pushed our luck by continuing hiding because eventually the police found us as they were doing a required sweep around the premises. The police ended up finding us, and when they did, they detained us until they caught the actual suspect they were looking for. Apparently, the kid who let off the gunshots was someone who went to a whole different school, and he was only a year younger than me.
He was a kid?
Nobody got hurt, thankfully, but the kid said he was coming to kill some girl specifically, but he failed. Something weird I want to add real quick is how eerily similar me and this kid look. We were both the same height, same color hair, and hairstyle, and we were dressed very similar that day.
That was you.
The police
Man.
quickly figured out I had nothing to do with it though after we explained everything. I learned my lesson that day for sure.
No more ditching school.
This took place on my very last day of high school. I was on my senior year, so after I got through today, it would be the very end of high school for me.
A big ass high school.
Of course, I was super excited, and I felt a huge amount of relief, but there was also a sadness in the air for me that day.
Sad for what?
Because all it really meant was that I was going to have to leave all my friends behind and have to make new ones in college. I tried to not look at it so negatively, because ultimately it is what it is, and it's just a part of life, you know, changes. I don't remember exactly why or what happened, but I was in a particularly bad mood this day because of things that were going on at home with my family. I think it was 5th hour, which was biology class. I didn't mind the class really, but the teacher was the one that made it horrible. Mr. Johnson was a jerk to me and many of the other kids in my class. I honestly don't know how he hadn't been fired sooner. He was notorious for getting into it with the kids and getting into screaming matches. One time he even broke a kid's phone, and another time he legit threatened me in front of the whole class. I don't think he works there as a teacher anymore, but I really didn't feel like going to his class that day, so I skipped it. I went over to the library, and my plan was to lay low until 6th hour. I hid in the back of the library in the computer section and pretended like I was doing my schoolwork, but really I was playing games on my phone the entire time. Not too long after this, all of a sudden, the school's intercom went off. We were having a lockdown. Although I will admit it alarmed me, I figured it was just a practice drill and that our school was just testing us again.
I've had lockdown drills.
Our school does at least 2 practice drills each semester, so I played it risky and decided to hang tight. But all of a sudden, I heard screaming down the hall. It was very muffled sounding and I couldn't make out what was being said. All I could hear was the screaming. It seemed to have gone on for a couple of minutes. I quickly started to realize that we were probably in a real lockdown. I panicked and I thought my best bet was to hide somewhere in the library, so I hid under the computer desks.
Yeah, computer desk pretty good.
Not the best spot, I know, but I figured it was better than nothing. I kept quiet and waited for the PA to come back on and for it to say the drill was over with, but it never did. It must have been 20 minutes of me just lying there in fear. I took my phone out at one point and I saw that I had like 20 plus messages from some of my classmates from biology, and they asked where I was and that we were in a real lockdown. That was when my heart dropped to my stomach and I started to feel sick. I told them all I was safe and that I was hiding in the library. There was nobody else in the library with me as far as I knew, because there weren't any teachers or kids when I first walked in, which was actually quite unusual. Nonetheless, it freaked me out even more that I was pretty much alone. I just kept waiting in hopes that it was all going to be over soon. Well, it was only just the beginning. I didn't know what I had really got myself into by skipping class. A few more minutes passed by and the screaming picked back up again, and then shortly after, I heard someone running through the hall. Then my worst fear came alive. The library door opened and somebody was walking inside.
Uh-oh. That's not
As
good.
scared as I was, I managed to peek my head up to see if I could see who it was. But all I could see was a dark shadow of someone that looked like to be around my height. I hid back under the desk, and that was when I saw a flashlight turn on. Whoever it was began searching all around. All I can remember is praying to God that I was going to be okay. Eventually, the person made their way over to the cubicle I was in by all the computers. I knew it was only a matter of seconds before he were to see me, so I jumped out from under the desk again and made myself visible.
Say peekaboo.
Hey, I said. Within a second, I had a flashlight pointing at me,
And the
along with a
gun.
gun.
Good job.
Tyler? What the hell are you doing, man? I asked. Tyler was one of my close friends in middle school, but we didn't keep up with each other much ever since starting high school.
You went postal.
Through the years, we kind of had a falling out and went our separate ways. Anyways, I told him to put the gun down, and after almost a full minute of silence from him, he started to break down crying and dropped to the floor. I kicked the gun away and reassured him that it was going to be okay. And I told him that we needed to do the right thing and that he needed to turn himself in if he really wanted any chances of getting better. Surprisingly, he actually listened to me, and I walked with him towards the office until we found a teacher, and the teacher then led us to the police. I, as a witness, told him everything that I knew, and Tyler also complied 100% as well. I'm just happy that Tyler found me rather than someone else.
You gonna stay friends
I was one of
with him?
Tyler's only friends in his eyes, and if he would have found someone else, I'm sure he would have killed them truthfully. We really need to raise awareness for this kind of stuff and do everything as a society that we can to limit the violence in school shootings specifically.
That's wild.
As much as I don't like Tyler for what he did, he was a kid who was bullied and picked on his whole life and had a horrible home life along with different types of mental illnesses, I'm sure. So really, it's no surprise if you think about it, what he attempted to do. That's usually how it goes down. It's deafening and unbelievably horrible that some people are capable of doing things like this. And that's to say the least. But we really need to do our best to prevent them from happening in the first place.
Yeah, I went through a lot of all of that. You know, home life was terrifying.
As a busy mother of three living on a tight budget, the Walmart near my house is the most convenient and affordable option for my grocery shopping. The staff there is generally very nice and helpful, and I've never had any problems there, except for a few quality issues with meat and produce. Unfortunately, I've had to take a break from shopping there. I hope I can go back soon, but only time will tell. I had an encounter at Walmart that destroyed the feeling of security I used to have there. It started out like a normal shopping trip, which I do about once a week. As usual, while I was grabbing a cart, I said hello to the greeter, and we had a brief conversation. Since I go there so regularly, he recognizes me every time. He's a sweet old man, but other than that, we were both just going about our business. That day, however, I noticed something strange over his shoulder. Or rather, someone. In the open seating area of the subway at the front of the store, I saw a man staring at us, eating a sandwich while he sat facing the entrance. Even at a glance, I could tell something was weird about it. The greeter asked me if something was wrong, but I said I was fine and moved on. I thought it would be better to just get out of his eyesight and let him look at all the other people entering and exiting the store. I started my process of getting groceries, which after all these years of doing it every week, I've got it down to a system that keeps me from doing any backtracking and discourages me from getting lost in the areas where I might be tempted to buy things I don't need. For a while, I didn't notice anything obviously out of the ordinary, but at several instances, I did get the feeling I was being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder, but I never saw anyone looking at me. Still, I was getting pretty on edge, so I hurried up to get out of the store faster. The last thing I needed to get were some pellets for my son's pellet rifle. While I was looking for the right kind of pellets, with one glance to the side, my suspicions were confirmed. At the end of the sporting goods aisle, a man was standing perfectly still and staring directly at me. It was the same man that stared me down from the subway. Upon this closer look, it was even more obvious that there was something wrong with him. His clothes were filthy, and he had this terrifying look in his eyes. I immediately turned the other way and headed for checkout. Every time I looked behind me, he was still following me. I got in line and was lucky enough to basically get right up to the cashier. The man following me grabbed a drink from a cooler and got in line to check out with the register next to me. Unsurprisingly, he got done before me and waited in the subway. When I was finished, I tried telling the cashier about him so they could maybe get the manager to do something about him. But they basically shooed me away so they could work through the line that had developed behind me. So instead, as I was leaving the store, I talked to the greeter. I pointed the stalker out and asked him to stall him for as long as he could. Then, I hurried out of the store to where my car was parked in the lot. I packed my groceries into the trunk as quickly as I could, but I wasn't fast enough. The stalker came running up to me and cornered me into the trunk of my car, where he began harassing me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I needed to tell you how beautiful you are.
Thanks, but, I'm married. Please, go away.
Yep.
Oh no, no way.
Yep.
Not before I see if your feet are as beautiful as the rest of you.
Oh boy.
What? No! Stay away from me!
Come on, just let me get a quick pic of your feet, that's all.
Does that really happen?
What? No!
Feet.
Stay away from me! Ew!
That's what you wanted?
You're not getting any pictures of me, you sick
Feet?
pervert!
Feet
Stop
pictures?
being such a prude. All you gotta do is take off your shoes.
Feet pictures?
Hell no! Somebody help me!
Fine, I'll do it for you. That's when he tried to rip off my shoes. I tried to kick him away, but every time my shoe connected with his face, he seemed to enjoy it, making me much more crazed. For some reason, nobody in the parking lot came over to do anything about my screaming. It wasn't that hard for my shoes to come off, and then my socks. Once I was barefoot, the creep took out his phone and took a picture of my feet. I thought it would be over then. At that point, I let him get that far out of a mixture of shock and fear. But then, he took it even further. He grabbed my foot and lifted it up to his nose. He took a deep whiff, but it didn't even end there. Oh yeah, your feet smell so good, lady. Let me get a taste too.
What? No. No. Oh, shit.
What the hell? Ew!
As soon as his tongue touched my toe, my other foot acted out of pure instinct and kicked him square in the eye.
Yep, there
He
it is.
released me and fell back onto the ground.
Run for your life.
He looked up at me with surprise and a bit of fear. I guess at that moment he decided he had enough, because he got up and ran off.
Damn, only
Only
toes.
after the threat had passed did someone come up and offer help, and it turned out to be the greeter. Apparently, after stalling the creep for just a second, the poor old man got shoved to the ground as the creep ran out to catch up to me. Thankfully, he wasn't hurt. But at his age, a fall like that could have been serious. We called the police and I reported what happened. When the Walmart manager reviewed the store security footage per police request, they were able to confirm that the creep had been stalking me all over the store. It's for that reason I don't know if I could ever go back to Walmart. I certainly miss the prices and the convenience, but I'll never forget what I experienced in that parking lot.
Feet.
According to Reddit user u/Suavecore, an apparent Walmart employee responding to a thread in the Walmart subreddit, the craziest thing that ever happened in their store happened about a year ago in 2023. The stalking of a woman in her mid-40s by a man in his early 20s originated inside the store. The stalker was seen on security footage following the woman around the store and waiting for her in the subway while she checked out. As she left the store, she was followed to her car. According to what the woman told the police, the man told her that she was beautiful and talked with her for a few seconds before suddenly ripping her shoes off and
This
smelling
really
her feet,
happened?
while the woman held onto the car in shock. Shortly after, he fled to his car and drove away. The Reddit user alluded to the fact that the man lives a few hours away in the same state, which would imply that he has been identified. But unfortunately, there's no information about whether or not he's been arrested and charged for the incident. I've been shopping at Walmart for 25 years, and I never experienced anything crazy.
I can't do that. This is fucking my sinuses up, bro.
I think if this happened to anyone without the sort of training I got from the military, it could have ended much worse. At the beginning of spring, when the temperature started going back up, this guy in front of my local Walmart started selling water bottles out of a cooler for $1. I saw him outside the entrance every time I went shopping for a few months. I could never tell if he was homeless or not, but I always assumed he was. It never bothered me since I don't work at Walmart and I don't have any reason to care. But I never bought anything from him. I know it's going to be hot outside when I leave the house. I bring water with me. Simple as that. When I went shopping last week, he was there just like usual. He seemed a little agitated that day and was being pushier than usual. As I walked up to the door, he singled me out and stepped out in front of me, trying to get me to buy water. I refused and tried to walk around him, but he continued to block me from entering the store, and he became even more aggressive with his tactics. Come on, you're telling me a big husky boy like you isn't thirsty in this heat? Buy a water, man, it's ice cold.
I'ma rob you, bro.
And you think insulting me is going to work? Back off, I'm not buying. What's your problem, man? I'm trying to help you out and you're yelling in my face? Just ask someone else, dude. I'm done with this. Eventually, I walked past him and got into the store. But he followed me inside, continuing to shout at me to buy a bottle of water.
Damn.
An employee at the front of the store quickly confronted him. They argued for a moment, but eventually the man finally let it go and left. I had a long grocery list as I usually do, so I wanted to get through it. My first item on the list was canned food. The aisle wasn't far from the entrance, and it didn't take me long to get there. I stopped my cart and reached down to grab the green beans on the lower shelf. When all of a sudden, someone hit me in the back of the head. I was completely caught off guard. By the time I could even turn around, I had already been hit several times. The attacker hit me right in my eyes.
You getting beat up by
I was so disoriented that I couldn't even tell how many people there were,
Ain't you
or
black?
who they were. It felt like I was being jumped by 3 or 4 people. I tried to step back and make space, but they stayed right on me the whole time. I finally put up my defenses and got my first good look at my attacker. It was that same man from before.
Damn.
He kept punching me in the face.
What do you think it was
I
gonna be?
pushed him back only for him to rush forward and grab me by the arm and keep hitting me. I fought back by punching him in the chin several times, but somehow he was unfazed. I couldn't escape his hold on me, so I reached into my pocket for my knife. I pulled it out and put it to his throat, demanding he let me go. He grabbed it instead. We fought over the knife, trading blows with our other hands.
You are a horrible fighter,
When both
bro.
of our hands were grabbing at the handle, he resorted to kicking me in the groin. Due to the shock of the pain, my focus on the knife slipped for a moment, and that's when he grabbed it. I staggered back, trying to make space. The attacker paused, smirking with success. For a moment, time slowed to a crawl. The threat to my life had just been severely intensified. I got my bearings on my surroundings, noticing for the first time that we were actually surrounded by a crowd of people. But instead of doing anything to help me, they had taken out their phones and were filming. I had no time to feel injustice, though. The attacker lunged at me, thrusting the knife through the air. Just then, an old muscle memory came back to me. A piece of CQC training from boot camp when I was 18 years old. 25 years later, I used it for the first time in a real-life scenario. I quickly blocked the rushing attack and disarmed the man as he tried to stab me, grabbing a hold of it myself. My muscle memory also led me to stab the man twice without even thinking about it. Luckily, I only hit his arms. He shouted in pain and tripped over himself, collapsing to the ground. I stood there in a queasy state, wondering if he was going to get up and come at me, wondering if I would have to stab him again. Thankfully, when he got to his feet, he turned around and ran right out of the store. Nobody tried to stop him, and I didn't go after him. I was pretty shaken up, both by the attack itself and with what I had proven myself to be capable of so automatically. Some people finally came up to me, and after talking with them for a while, I felt mostly normal again. A bit later, the police showed up, as well as a news crew. I gave my statements to the police and then figured I should agree to do an interview with the reporters while the memory was fresh. This wasn't the way I envisioned I'd be on the news if I ever did. And one of the strangest things to me is that after everything, at the end of the day, I still needed to get groceries. When I returned to shopping, I had to go back to the exact same spot where it happened, right in front of the can of green beans. As I reached down to grab them, I had a flashback to the fight. At the time, I didn't realize he was saying anything, but suddenly I remembered him screaming about something. It was the reason why he was attacking me. His cooler full of water had been stolen while he was in the store with me, and somehow he blamed me for it. He was trying to punch my teeth in for stealing his cooler. I really don't understand this world.
I've had a lot worse. That was actually real?
On June 14th, 2024, a man named Lonnie Blanzett was attacked while shopping at Walmart in Shreve City, Louisiana. Blanzett gave a detailed account of the ensuing battle to local news reporters, in which he describes being absolutely surprised by the attack. As he struggled to make sense of what was going on and defend himself, the Blanzett turned to two weapons on his person. We chose not to depict the struggle over the first weapon here on YouTube, but it follows the same line of events as the second. The attacker was able to take the knife out of Blanzett's hands, but luckily he was able to regain possession of it. At which point he stabbed his attacker twice. The attacker then fled the store. Blanzett remarked that there were onlookers filming him fighting for his life, instead of doing anything to help him. Despite this, no footage of the fight was able to be found. Apparently, that's just the sort of thing people like to keep in their camera roll and look back on every once in a while.
Damn. That's wild.
4 years ago, I was a regular shopper at Walmart. In March of 2020, when the virus was starting to get out of control, and everyone was worried about it becoming a full-blown apocalypse, I decided it was a good time to stock up on supplies. I put on my mask and walked into Walmart with a couple $100 to spare. And I was immediately caught off guard by the pandemonium I had just stepped into. Don't get me wrong, trips to Walmart in daytime have never been relaxing. But I'd never seen so much desperation and panic before. People were scurrying around like rats, loading up on huge amounts of everything they could get their hands on. And ironically, the store was packed, but only half of the people in there were wearing masks. Taking one of the last remaining carts, I started combing through the aisles and picking up everything on my list. I couldn't afford to get heaps of stuff, so I spread out my budget to the bare necessities. Batteries, shelf-stable food, water, that sort of thing. And yes, I was only able to get a single small pack of one-ply toilet paper because that was all that was left. Aside from the general atmosphere of the store being in historical turmoil, there was one other unusual event I clearly remember. I was in the canned foods aisle. Naturally, there were quite a few other people in there. Everybody was in their own world, grabbing what they could with tunnel vision. However, one guy was out of place. He didn't have a card or a mask. He wasn't even carrying anything. But he was standing at the end of the aisle, just a few feet from me. As I picked up a can of beans, I saw him smile like a creep out of the corner of my eye. I glanced over and he looked away. Then he walked off, quietly laughing. At the time, I figured he was just some nutjob in denial of the whole situation, getting some kick out of watching everyone scramble for resources. Maybe he was amused by me in particular, wearing a mask meant for a doctor while I grasped intently for the cheapest can of beans in Walmart. I even laughed at myself a little bit too. There was something morbidly entertaining about those times. Acknowledging that helped me get through it all. Regardless, I quickly forgot about him and went about my business. I finished up my shopping and went home. I put all my stuff away and then sat down on the couch. Foolishly, I forgot to wash my hands until a few minutes later. But by then I was pretty sure I already touched my face. Oh well, I thought. The next day, I was sicker than I'd ever been in my life. I didn't need a test to know what I had. That disease felt unlike any sickness I had ever experienced. Within hours, I was too weak to walk. I was overcome with fever and chills. By nightfall, I was coughing horribly. When I wasn't coughing, I was trying to breathe with what felt like a bowling ball on my chest. The next morning, after a fitful sleep, I began vomiting. I threw up everything I had in my stomach. Then I dry heaved until it was time to turn around and dump everything out the other end too. I struggled to keep down a sip of water, much less a bite of food. Luckily, I didn't live alone, but it wasn't like I had a loving wife to take care of me. I had a roommate on the other side of my apartment. We quarantined ourselves to our respective rooms, but it didn't stop him from catching it too. For some reason, however, The strange nature of the disease meant that his case was far less severe. He described it as a mild flu, which he was able to recover from in just a few days. I, on the other hand, was bedridden for a week. My roommate helped me with a few things, mostly just checking in on me periodically to make sure I didn't need to go to the hospital. Eventually, I did start to feel better. My fever was gone and I could eat again, albeit slowly. It seemed like my body had defeated the virus. Unfortunately, it took another week for my body to fully recover from the damage that had been done. 15 days after contracting the virus, I finally felt back to my old self. I waited another week before going out as recommended, but that was easy to do because of everything I had bought before getting sick. Although, after about another week, I needed to go out and get a few things. Once again, I put on my mask and headed over to Walmart. I didn't need to stock up on as much as I did last time, so it was a much shorter trip. Also, by then, the lockdown was in full effect, so barely anyone was in the store. I'd run out of all my canned foods, so that was one of the things I needed. I didn't expect to see anyone when I entered the canned food aisle, but I never would have guessed in a million years what I saw in that moment. The same man who I caught staring at me 3 weeks prior was standing right where I stood in that interaction. He was holding a can of beans up to his mouth, licking it all over. I stopped and stared in shock, watching in absolute disbelief. This wasn't just some little lick. It was a full-on makeout session, a showcase in canned cunnilingus. This persisted for several torturous seconds before the creep finally noticed me. What? Are you afraid of a little cold? You disgusting freak! Overcome with rage, I grabbed a can and chucked it at his face. It nailed him in the side of his head as he tried to block it. Then I grabbed another can, and that sent him running. I didn't chase after. Obviously, I didn't want to be anywhere near him. Nobody had been around for the interaction, but I reported him to the management. After reviewing the security footage, they said they'd look into it. But then, they banned me for assaulting a customer and damaging merchandise. Needless to say, I haven't shopped at Walmart since. Later, I found out that sicko had been licking items in Walmart for weeks. Somehow, nobody in the store noticed. What's more, he was actively posting himself in the act on social media. It apparently took dozens of reports to police to get them to arrest him. But eventually, they finally did. I can't say 100% that he's the reason I got so sick. On March 11, 2020, a 26-year-old man in Missouri named Cody Lee Feister posted a video of himself licking deodorants in Walmart, poking fun at anyone who would be concerned about the potential consequences. Weeks later, after numerous calls from local residents, and even calls from the other side of the world, police finally arrested Feister. One has to wonder how many other items he may have contaminated off camera, and by extension, just how many people could have fallen ill due to his actions. It is unknown if Feister tested positive for the virus at the time, but it doesn't make him any less disgusting.
Over the weekend, about 15 coworkers and myself had our company trip to the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, known for being Stephen King's inspiration for The Shining. We took an 8 p.m. ghost tour where we joined about 15 other people to get guided around the property and told stories about its history and creepy things that are said to have happened. We were told to take a lot of pictures, I'm sure to try and capture orbs or ghosts. Many green orbs were caught in pictures, but I don't think anything is as creepy as this photo taken by my coworker. A little girl in a hot pink dress who was definitely not on our tour. And apparently, years ago, a young girl who was 12 to 13 by the name of Lucy was squatting in the basement of the concert hall, which is where this photo was taken. And she was discovered upon plans to begin some construction. She was forced to leave, and the night got below freezing. So she froze to death. Everyone on my tour has vouched that this girl was not on our tour. I mean, who wouldn't remember someone wearing hot pink? The man pictured as our tour guide, no one would have been in front of him. I am convinced that this is the ghost of Lucy. Just one more added note, though I doubt anyone would believe me. But there was only one time throughout the tour where I felt any strange energy or feeling. And it was right there, headed down to the basement of the concert hall.
A few weeks ago when I was walking home from school, excited that my freshman year was coming to an end. It was a Tuesday night when I was turning in my last essay for history. I left it to the last minute and the teacher actually made me complete it before I could go home. I hated my teacher for that. Around 8 p.m., I had finished that goddamn essay and was walking home. The rain had stopped and there was a beautiful sunset. Suddenly, I noticed something. There was a red 2016 Toyota Camry right behind me. I got goosebumps thinking it was following me. I didn't look back and started walking in my apartment's direction. I wanted to go to a busy road to feel safer. Just then, the car sped up, stopping right next to me. A middle-aged man asked me where I was headed and suggested to drop me off. I said no thanks, but the man wouldn't leave and insisted. I wanted to tell the man to just fuck off, but I took off running instead. I heard a loud noise and at the same time felt something I can only describe as a sharp vibration hitting my flesh. I fell to the ground not knowing what happened. Out of adrenaline, I was about to get up and run again as I felt a heavy arm grab me by the mouth. Then the pain set in. I realized that I was shot. There was another man next to him that searched my pockets. He grabbed my phone and threw it on the ground as he tied my legs and taped my mouth. They quickly put me into the trunk of their car and then started driving. I could feel that we were going very fast, and I'm sure that we hadn't stopped at all for a good 30 minutes. I was feeling my blood soaking into my shirt, which scared me the most. I was certain that I was going to die. I was thinking about my parents and what they would feel when they heard that I was missing. Then the car came to a stop. By some miracle, I heard a police officer asking for IDs and driver's licenses. I wanted to yell for help, but nothing came out. Just then, I heard 3 to 4 gunshots. I heard another cop yelling, "Man down! Man down! Shots fired!" I was begging the cop to find me. Then I heard the cop searching the car. I was feeling joy as my pain was growing worse. Seconds felt like hours. The officer then opened the car's trunk and suddenly started firing at me out of a fight or flight response. Thankfully, the bullets missed. The officer quickly caught up to the fact that I was kidnapped and injured.
Really? That's what's good in the streets? Oh man, he's tied and bound in this trunk. Well, it's obvious he's one of them, like yesterday.
Called for backup immediately, and it arrived in minutes. They placed the injured officer onto a gurney and drove off in an ambulance. Finally, when the scene was safe, they called another ambulance for me. I woke up in the hospital. The news media was everywhere. I was fine after a few days, but later learned that the officer that was shot didn't make it. I don't know if those men are still alive or rotting away in a prison for killing an officer. I don't want to know what would have happened if those officers hadn't stopped the car.
Well, the moral of this story is, shoot, I don't even know. He gets shot by the kidnappers and by the cops. Jeez.
In the year 2009, I was spending a weekend with my uncle on his ranch when my parents were renovating the new house we had just bought. It was my second night there, a Saturday, and it happened to be during one of the biggest thunderstorms of the year. I'd say there were at least 3 crashes of thunder and lightning per minute. And we were in the heart of the storm, because the thunder would crash not even a second after the lightning would. I always enjoyed listening to storms while laying in bed. So I stayed up a little later watching TV, just enjoying the ambiance. After the movie I was watching finally ended, I turned off the TV and tried to fall asleep. As I heard the lightning strike from outside, I could have sworn I heard some kind of metallic thud coming from outside at the same time. I didn't pay it too much mind. 20 seconds later, I could have sworn I heard it again. A very distinct metallic thud coming from outside to match the timing of the lightning. I really don't mean to make this sound like a cliche horror story, but my uncle really is a kind of creepy guy, and I was never close with him even remotely. So for that reason, I didn't feel right going to wake him up. I just tried to forget about it. Now I was getting concerned. What the hell could that be? After the third time, I finally got out of bed and walked over to the window of the guest bedroom. The water pouring down on the window made it extra hard to see what was out there in the dark fields. A flash of lightning momentarily lit up the property, but I couldn't see anything. However, once again, the sound of a metal hit accompanied it. The sound was so close now, it sounded like it was coming from the left of the window at a blind spot. I was going to do something I knew my uncle wouldn't be happy about. It would be a bit messy, but I was going to open the window and peer outside to see if I could see what the sound was. I unhooked the window lock and slid it up, and immediately the wind of the storm blew drops of rain into the room and onto me. I stuck my head out the window and looked to the left, and at that very moment, lightning lit up the property once again, and I could see a person dressed in all black crouched down by the outside basement door with his hand raised in the air. And before the sky went dark, I caught the briefest glimpse of what the sound was coming from. The person was bashing at the basement door lock. I pulled my head in and quietly shut the window.
Shut the f up, nigga! Shit! You ain't got no job, no rent! Cat jerks.
Making sure to lock it. I was in a panic. I feared he might have seen or heard me. I ran back to bed and pretended to be asleep, facing away from the window. Lightning crashed.
Bro, you gonna go to sleep? You just gonna let him break in? Nigga, what?
Crashed once again, but this time there was no metallic thud. My heart must have dropped as I realized this. I just stayed put in bed for the longest time, hoping whoever was out there would go away. After maybe 3 more lightning crashes without any thuds accompanying them, I thought it would be safe to go tell my uncle. I turned to face the window and screamed. There was a figure, clear as day, standing at the window, looking in at me. I screamed as loud as I could and ran straight to my uncle's room. He went outside with his hunting rifle with nothing on but his pajamas, not even socks. He ran—
A real one! Bro, he's about to land, he's about to put it down! I catch somebody break into my shit, nigga, I shoot twice and then ask questions and then shoot again just for making me shoot him the first 2 times. They ain't playing no games.
Around the entire property yelling like a madman, but didn't find anyone. The next morning we were able to better see the marks on the basement door lock. It was almost bashed open. Maybe 3 or 4 more good hits would have done it, according to my uncle. He was proud of me for picking up on it. Luckily I was out of there that same day. My uncle hasn't told us of any incidents since, so I think he's been okay. Not that we talked to him much at all. I'm grateful I stayed up a little later that night watching that movie, because I may have just stopped a robbery, or possibly much worse. I'm 27 years old. I live alone in a rural town in Virginia, about 2 blocks away from my parents. My parents are both in their 60s, and my mom has become a very worrisome woman in her old age. Sometimes she walks over uninvited and lets herself in, since I had regrettably given her a key, which can get a bit annoying. Like if I would be out really late on weekends at a bar or with women, I would sometimes come home to my mom sitting in the living room waiting, worried sick. I know you may just think, oh my god, that's crazy, why not just put your foot down and tell her to stop? Well, because you don't know my mom. It's very hard to describe her, but she's the kind of worrisome, innocent little lady that you just can't bring yourself to go against. And I hate to mention, she also has mild dementia. Anyway, this was Saturday night. I think it was around 2 in the morning. I was at a nearby club with a group of college friends, really the only place to hang out in this boring town, and I was getting ready to head home. I said goodbye to all my friends and walked the 3 blocks it took to get back to my house. I walked up my front stoop in my drunken haze and dug my hand in my pocket for my keys. When I grabbed the doorknob, I realized it was unlocked. My mom was here again. I quietly opened and shut the front door, locking it behind me. I put my keys on the kitchen counter and found a note written in my mom's handwriting saying, "You forgot this at our house, next to the box of half-eaten cake my parents didn't want." I didn't see my mom anywhere, so I assumed she must have gone upstairs to sleep in the guest bed until I got back, which is something she would commonly do as
heard something, man. Alright, now I don't know. Alright, man, I'm gonna get done with this fast, bro. I don't about this life.
Then I heard footsteps upstairs, confirming it. And that's when I sighed once again. 27 years old, almost 3 in the morning, and she still has to wait up and treat me like a child. I ran upstairs to check the guest bed, empty, along with all the bathrooms. I was afraid Mom was having one of her episodes due to her condition, so I ran to the phone to call my dad. After 4 rings, my dad picked up in a groggy voice, asking what the hell is the matter. After I told him that I heard Mom wandering around upstairs in my house, there was a short pause, and then he said, "That's not possible, she's sleeping right next to me." My mouth fell open as I turned my head to face the dark upstairs, and just barely by the light provided by the kitchen, I could see a head peering around from the corner at the top of the stairs, looking down at me. I screamed into the phone as I ran out the front door and down the street to my parents' house, explaining to my father on the way. About halfway there, my dad told me, "Alright, I'm gonna call the cops," and hung up. I made it to my parents' house, where my mom was already waiting at the door, worried sick. My mom explained that she did come over to clean my kitchen a little bit and to bring over the cake they didn't want. 2 police cars pulled up in front of my parents' house, where they escorted me and my dad down the street to my house. 1 officer stayed outside with us, while 2 others went inside to investigate. It felt like 15 minutes before they came back outside and said it was clear. They checked the crawl space, the attic, everything. There was really nothing for me to report, other than the door was left unlocked and I saw the outline of a head upstairs before I ran for it. Still, I didn't feel safe sleeping in there that night, so I went back to my parents' house. Me and my dad are certain that my mom simply forgot to lock the door when she left, as her memory has been getting worse over the past few months. My dad has been stopping her from coming over alone from now on, which makes me both sad but also relieved. Some nights I still get paranoid that whoever was in my house that night never left, and is still hiding in here somewhere. Back in high school, I took a mysteries and mythology type class, or something like that. I don't remember the name of the class. It basically just had to do with real life mysteries and creepy shit. I was into that kind of stuff. I was taking the class with a good friend, who I'll call Ben for this story. The teacher of the class took us on a field trip to a nearby abandoned village with an unknown past. The village was built in the early 1900s, but seems as though it had been quickly abandoned shortly after it was built. The bus ride there was about 20 minutes. All of us were glued to the bus windows as we pulled up some sketchy-looking, decrepit road cutting through dense forest. The road eventually led to a clearing. We were there. We stepped out onto the road, which had grass growing through the cracks. The grass surrounding was almost knee-high. Then there were the buildings. The tall, archaic brick buildings with the boarded-up windows all gave off such chilling vibes. The teacher lined all 20 of us up, counted heads, and then began leading the way. The point of this little field trip was to use the so-called skills we learned in class to see if we could put anything together about why the village may have been abandoned so long ago. Some of the buildings had holes in the walls to serve as entryways. There were even holes in the ground next to some of the buildings, seemingly dug to get into the basements of some of the buildings, which seemed creepy. There was one building though. It stood taller than any of the others. It just intrigued me the most. While the teacher was leading the group towards the village church, Ben and I decided to sneak off on our own to look for anything interesting. When we walked off in the direction of the tallest building, we saw a hole in the ground. It was dug by the back door of the building, which had been sealed off. In the hole was a ladder which led down to the concrete floor below. We both looked at each other and knew we had to do it. Ben climbed down first, then me. Luckily, this was just around the time Apple started putting flashlights on their phones, so we had a source of light. It was creepy down there. There were a couple of beer bottles, one graffiti tag on the wall, and dusty wooden planks everywhere. There was a wooden stairway which led up to complete darkness, since all windows and doors had been sealed shut from above. We had already gone as far as to enter the building, so we figured we'd go up the stairs too. I went first, and with each step, the creakiness of the 100-year-old wood made me feel as if I was going to fall through each and every step. Ben followed suit. This floor of the building was very tight. It seemed like there were many openings going off into different, smaller rooms. It was so dark in there, you would never even guess it was daytime. Ben and I were honestly starting to get creeped out in there, and agreed to go back outside. But just then, there was a noise in one of the tiny rooms, like a big rock hitting the concrete floor. A normal instinct would be to run, but Ben and I froze, locked eyes for a moment, then both tiptoed over to the opening of the room. We shined the lights into the room and ran. We ran back down the stairs and then up the rusty ladder back outside. We caught up to the group out of breath. We didn't say anything though to avoid getting in trouble. One of our classmates asked us what was wrong. We told him we snuck into one of the buildings, and in one of the rooms, when we shined the light into it, we saw 3 guys standing maybe 10 feet away from the doorway, facing Ben and I in a weird formation, as if they were waiting for us. As we continued following the group, we paid extra attention to the tall building we entered from the distance, and before leaving, we saw a person's face at one of the higher level windows that had not been boarded up. We never told the teacher in fear of getting in trouble. We didn't know what to think. Were those just homeless people living in there? Were they gang members in hiding? Ben freaks me out with his theory. He says they were ghosts of the people who once lived in the town. Still, the way the 3 guys were just hauntingly standing there so calmly, staring at us the moment we peeked our heads through that doorway, I still can't get that image out of my head. I may go back to that village one day, just to prove Ben's idea wrong.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Lord knows I didn't. I am now going to take my nunchucks, swords, and possibly a pistol and clear every room in my crib, because I swear to God I heard something, man.
Timothy O'Brien lived with his family in Deer Park, Texas, with his parents and little sister.
Damn, their house ain't got no furniture in it.
Oh God, just 2 couches. An optician at Texas State Optical in Sharpsburg.
He just needs to go bald for sure.
Bruh,
he was
just
the
cut it
deacon
off.
of the Second Baptist Church.
It looked like somebody just came with a lawnmower and just rode your shit.
Nigga, it does look like somebody lawnmowered his hairline while he was sleeping.
Bitch, where my hair go?
Trusted member of the community, being placed in charge of the local bus program.
Got Danny DeVito hairline.
On Halloween night of 1974, O'Brien took
What is going on with his
Timothy and
kids here? Both his kids look like they on. Why is it that everybody in this village like they on some type of drug?
His son is built like a pretty female.
His son looks like he on crack. She look like she on crystal meth and look like he off Xanax.
When the group knocked at the house, but the occupants failed to
look like they're on
answer,
drugs.
the children grew frustrated and skipped ahead to the next home in search of candy. When O'Brien caught up with them, they showed him 5 21-inch pixie sticks they had been given.
21?
When they returned home later in the evening, the young Timothy asked if he could eat one of the candy he and his friends had collected, opting for the huge pixie sticks he had prized so dearly.
Oh, I bet.
The young boy had trouble getting the powdered candy out of the plastic straw that contained it.
Oh boy.
So his father helped him loosen the sugary powder before offering it to him.
I've actually had to do that before, where you gotta roll it so that it's not all stuck together, so it just pours out.
When he ate it, Timothy remarked that the candy had a bitter flavor, so his father fetched him a glass of Kool-Aid to wash away the unpleasant taste.
You just ate ass, nigga!
But this was followed by Timothy
You just ate ashes, nigga!
Ass in the
took
can!
his son to the bathroom where he immediately began to violently vomit. But the discomfort did not ease, and soon the young boy was shaking and convulsing after collapsing to the bathroom floor.
Oh no, it's even worse than we thought, folks. It's not just ass he put inside the candy, it's bad ass. Or like
Badussy.
Oh,
wet
no.
ass Badussy.
Ronald held his
man
son close,
and woman.
He soon went limp in his arms.
Oh no.
Timothy O'Brien died on his way to a nearby hospital.
Oh, his whole body went flaccid.
Just less than an hour after consuming the candy. Timothy's autopsy revealed that the pixie stick he consumed was laced with a fatal dose of potassium cyanide. There was enough cyanide in his system to kill 3 to 4 fully grown adults. Timothy's death from the apparent poisoned Halloween candy prompted intense fear and paranoia in the local community. Numerous parents in Deer Park and the surrounding area promptly...
Who could do that?
First of all, you could die from eating 8 bananas potassium?
No, well, bananas are potassium. You have to eat like 9,000 bananas at once in order to die from bananas. Bruh, but like who would poison a child's candy? Who poisons children?
Oh, you're killing kids.
That's messed up. Not saying that I don't condone murdering children, but I'm just saying at least give them a fighting chance.
At least let him catch the fade.
I got a gun, you get a sharpened down soup spoon. Let's do it. To the death!
The children acquired from trick-or-treating to the police, for fear it was laced with the same deadly poison. During police interviews, Ronald O'Brien claimed that he could not remember exactly which house gave the children the pixie stick. However, the group of adults and children had only visited 2 streets worth of homes due to heavy rain that had begun to fall that evening. This narrowed down the search considerably. Houses were searched, recent receipts seized as evidence. Yet suspicions were raised when it was discovered that none of the homes the group visited were giving out pixie sticks. Police accompanied Ronald O'Brien through the neighborhood and questioned several times. Each time, he led them to the home that the group had visited, but those occupants did not answer the door. There, Ronald claimed that he had in fact revisited the house before he caught up with the children. He claimed that the owner had cracked the door open, that he inside of the house was dark, and a hairy, scarred arm reached out and
I just know they got an off-brand cop. This nigga not even for real cop. Nigga.
Police discovered the homeowner in question was a man by the name of Courtney Melvin.
Nigga got a half-eaten bagel as a badge.
Was employed as an air traffic controller at nearby Hobby Airport, and he started under questioning that he did not get home from work until 11 p.m. on the night of the 31st.
This nigga don't even
nearly 200
cardboard stick.
They literally gave this nigga a hunk of wood shaped like a gun, like in other guys with Will Ferrell in it.
This nigga got a half-eaten bagel as a badge.
Bro, they probably gave this nigga onion rings and just painted them hoes silver as handcuffs. Here you go, buddy.
You got a big dog. Somebody with them bitches.
Here you go, silver-colored Funyuns.
What the fuck on top of that nigga head? That nigga like he high off some shit. That nigga people's is gone.
Witnesses confirmed this. Courtney Melvin was rolled out as a potential suspect. But as their investigation continued, police made a shocking discovery that turned all theories upside down. It was learned that Ronald O'Brien was actually more than $100,000 in debt after a history of being unable to hold down a steady-paying job. In the 10 years previous to the death of his son, Ronald had held a grand total of 21 jobs. During interviews with his current employers, police were told by Ronald's bosses that he was suspected of workplace theft from Texas State Optical and was dangerously close to being fired. His car was on the verge of being repossessed. He had defaulted on several bank loans, which had in turn led to the family home being foreclosed on.
Damn!
Although he presented himself as the clean-cut pastor, Ronald's life was a mess of lies and deceit. It was discovered that Ronald O'Brien had taken out life insurance policies on his children in the months preceding the poisoning. One $10,000 policy with 2 additional $20,000 policies on both children. This was in spite of the advice given by the insurance agencies not to do so. When asked, Deneen O'Brien, the mother of Timothy and Ronald's wife, claimed she was completely unaware of any insurance policies on her children's lives. The final clue came when police learned that Ronald O'Brien had stopped by a chemical supply store in Houston.
Damn! He killed his kid for $30,000? At least get 50. I mean, don't never kill the kid, but if you have to, at least get 50,
and asked to purchase cyanide. However, he left empty-handed when he learned the smallest amount purchasable was 5 pounds. Despite repeatedly protesting his own innocence, O'Brien was now a major suspect. Texas police never did find out just where or when Ronald O'Brien had bought the cyanide that he used on his son. But regardless, on November 5th, 1974, he was arrested for Timothy's murder. Ronald was charged with 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder, given that the other children were in extreme danger of consuming the poison intended for Timothy.
Yeah,
he entered a plea of not guilty to all 5 counts.
Ain't no way in hell. During the trial,
a chemist who was familiar with O'Brien
claimed that's some wild shit.
That he had contacted him the previous summer regarding lethal dosages of cyanide. Another chemist took the stand testifying that Ronald had asked him how he could go about purchasing the deadly chemical. Additionally, Ronald's friends and coworkers also said that in the months preceding Timothy's death, Ronald had shown an unusual interest in cyanide and spoke about how much it would take to end a person's life. Those that attended Timothy's funeral told the court how Ronald had casually talked of taking a long vacation, only possible through the money accrued from Timothy's life insurance policies. O'Brien continued to maintain his innocence throughout the trial. Bizarrely, his defense hinged on the decades-old urban legend.
This nigga look like if I go to jail, I'm for sure getting touched. He look like he for sure gonna get touched.
Laced with needles,
it's over for him.
More likely,
you might as well just get
killing kids, man. You gotta become somebody's girlfriend.
Oh God, you getting your booty hole touch go.
Yep, way worse than touch, man.
Despite absolutely no documentation of such malice, these stories have persisted among those with a rich imagination. On June 3rd, 1975, a jury took just 46 minutes to find O'Brien guilty of,
I thought they was about to say 46 seconds.
Of capital murder. The jury then took just over an hour to sentence him to death. Shortly after he was convicted, his wife filed for divorce. She later remarried and her new husband adopted their surviving daughter, Elizabeth. The case and subsequent trial garnered national attention.
Oh, look at his wife cheating on him. She was grabbing the nuts. You saw it? She was grabbing the nuts.
All be familiar with.
Man, can't trust these hoes.
This nigga said the Candyman did it?
Ronald O'Brien, a nickname. Trial garnered national attention, and the press gave Ronald O'Brien a nickname I'm sure you'll all be familiar with. The Candyman.
The Candyman.
Why does the homie look like he is low-key, like, getting down with his jail cell?
I'm sure you'll all be familiar with.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
I
like these bars.
I love candy.
Killing kids!
I love candy and murder. Those are two of my favorite things. That was a good story. I didn't see that coming. Really didn't see that coming.
Time of the year. I was kind of a horror freak. I loved horror novels, movies, and...
What a slut. You gotta admit that you're a horror on screen and talk about reading the books of it? It's my kind of lady.
Games. I spent hours absorbing all the YouTube creepypasta stories I could find. But that all changed one Halloween night when myself and a few friends found something that would change our lives forever. This is the story of the Dead House. I always did love that era of chaos that presents on Halloween night. That twisted, festive feeling that adds a spark of excitement to an otherwise dark and dreary time of the year. We were too old to be trick-or-treating, but we still want to roam the streets and soak up the atmosphere. Besides, there's a lot you can get away with in costume, especially when you pour your bottle of adult beverage and...
Okay, yeah, you know what? I wasn't gonna say nothing before, but this man, I'm just gonna say, man, just looks real untrustworthy, holding that stick in his one hand, wearing a cape, and then you're gonna have the nerve to have a canister of mystery liquid in your other hand called spooky juice? Spooky? Like, it went...
Yo! There's so many things that could be said that's in that bottle that I won't say on camera.
I wasn't even gonna mention the fact you're a grown-ass man dressed like Harry Potter, because I plan on doing Harry Potter skits. But come on, bro, dead.
into a Mountain Dew bottle
like you can
and
easily
label
say,
it spooky.
let me give some of this spooky juice.
Spooky juice.
Adult beverage
Let me quench
into
your
a
thirst
Mountain
with the
Dew
spooky
bottle
juice.
and label it Spooky Juice. Our buddy Spike had comprehensively won our internal costume contests with his own homemade proton pack and Ghostbusters jumpsuit. He'd spent weeks on it, watching little YouTube painting tutorials and binge-watching the movies for minor details. It looked amazing, and he wasn't about to miss out on the opportunity to show the thing off. So off we went, wandering around the neighborhood and eating
Man, y'all look like 3 40-year-old virgins walking down the street like that.
store-bought candy. Since we were way too old to be trick-or-treating, part of the fun of these Halloween walkabouts was seeing the spectacular ways that fellow Halloween enthusiasts had decorated their houses. Over the years, it became something of a competition, and each year the decorations became more and more elaborate. I remember one family had gone as far as digging a small pit in their front lawn. They put some red lights in there, then covered the thing over with wooden boards that were complete with fake zombie fingers reaching out between the slats. It looked amazing, and we found ourselves joining a gaggle of parents and taking selfies with the chillingly original decoration. We saw some pretty impressive stuff that evening, from fake bodies hanging from trees to chained-up dogs that had been dressed up as adorable little hounds. But nothing caught our attention like the house at the end of Bachman Street. So a lot of you have heard of these hell houses that crop up around Halloween every year. The most infamous being these guerrilla operations where people can make a few bucks while indulging in a little of the Halloween spirit. So when you saw the house at the end of Bachman Street with its doors wide open, we figured it was just part of the display. A couple was heading away from the house looking pretty scared, so we asked them.
I just hit myself right in the mouth. On camera! Just smooth act like it didn't happen.
They really went all out this year. One of the pair said.
Ain't shit happened.
So realistic.
Nobody saw that.
We left a few dollars on the table as a thank you. There's no tip jar anywhere, so you guys gotta see it though. On that, we agreed. Something that was actually scary, right here in our own neighborhood? We had to see it.
Damn, her titties fat as shit.
We studied the house intently as we wandered down the street towards it. The facade was barely decorated compared to the others we'd seen. Just a carved pumpkin and a few plastic hanging skeletons.
Why would you go trick-or-treating at that type of house?
I don't know.
Something odd about the way the cars
looks
were
like it's covered in poop and leaves.
Something weirdly chaotic.
Poop.
Anyway, we wander up.
Niggas dressed like Ghostbusters. Really acting like they're really going to exercise a ghost. Grown ass men.
We gonna take down these niggas.
I can't even hate though, cause like I'm gonna be doing the same shit on Halloween. Like I'm a video record it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
jumping out of the bush and scaring kids.
I'm with that. We gonna go bag snatching. You know what I mean? I'm gonna throw fake shit at people. I'm gonna throw fake shit.
Oh God, I got a whole can of Nutella.
Yep.
Right at your windshield.
Yep. And then run for my life because I'm not about that life.
To the front door, peering inside before entering. But again, there doesn't seem to be any extensive decoration on the inside either. That all changes once we enter the kitchen.
What the
dining
fuck?
Chairs was
it was a massacre.
Ropes around the armrests hanging freely as they'd been cut away from someone's arms.
It's a snuff film! They was filming snuff!
Laid on the table nearby were...
You know what a snuff film is?
It was look like they was filming a Jackass video.
Bruh, it really do. Who's coming up with this
utensils,
shit?
Some still clogged with shredded flesh. Flies buzzed around us, landing on the body and various bloodstains around the room. Wow, one of us said softly. You can see where they use corn syrup to make the blood. Houseflies love that stuff.
Nigga, are those fingers?
How did they get that kind of
Oh, they couldn't.
Those are fingers!
Another asked.
They cutting off fingers.
But we didn't put too much thought into it. We were so over...
Maybe maybe this house is just a really, really run down, yet safe back alley abortion clinic.
Or they was fingering people. They cut off the fingers to finger them.
That seems counterproductive.
What?
You cut it.
Overwhelmed and impressed that we just carried on moving through the house.
Just use a dirty
The
Mountain
living
Dew
room
can,
was
like.
somehow even more disturbing than the kitchen.
Is that a real
Sat
little
on
girl?
a small
Is
dark
it?
wood coffee
Oh, there's
table
eyeballs and
was
shit.
a
She's
homemade doll.
black.
It was a cluster of roots and twigs, all bound and woven together with reeds and dry grass. The face of the thing was made of clay, a single shiny stone pushed into it, resembling a kind of cyclopean eye.
Like Ganondorf.
Arranged around it in a perfect circle were severed fingers, toes, and plucked out eyes.
Sexy time.
There was also a cluster of dollar bills from the couple's recent visit. I took out my wallet, taking out a few old singles before asking around to see if my buddies had anything to leave as a kind of thank you.
Make my hands want to twirl.
$14
How it go? I don't know how it went. I'm assuming it's went something like that.
Bruh.
Throwing stripper ones on the
Yeah! Make the cadaver twerk for a real nigga. You know what I'm saying?
Shake that.
Yeah, shake that. Shake your dead.
$14 in ones.
Shake your flaccid, lifeless
by the time I let
anus.
it drop onto the coffee table.
Twerk. Twerk. Yeah! Drop it on the bitches.
Get out of here. This place is getting me the
you
creeps.
are a dirty dead body, aren't you?
My buddies wouldn't let me hear the end of it. Scared by a family-run hell
What
house.
the hell?
Idiot. But when we saw the kids' bedroom,
that's a nigga. I thought that was a crackheaded
ass man in a pregnancy dress.
Oh God, trying to put on little boy clothes.
At least he's wearing red Crocs.
Man, that little boy looks so depressed, like he just got touched. He looked like he touched that boy the wrong way.
Bruh, the kid looks hella depressed. Like, man, this is what I'm gonna grow up to be.
Like, you making me like this.
Lost the lottery of life.
All we could see was the back of him.
Ugh.
He had long, thin gray hair, and first all we could see was in kids' toys was a man. At first, all we could see was the back of him. He had long, thin gray hair and had somehow fit himself into a little girl's pink, frilly nightgown.
Oh boy.
We all froze in the doorway, staring wide-eyed as the creepy-looking old guy just sat there.
I love it like y'all gonna stand there like you're not supposed to run. I'm not
like you just looking at the kids, probably like, take me with you. You just looking at it?
Hell no, nigga. Ugh.
Playing with the toys, putting on little childish voices as he played at making them talk to one another.
Yep.
It was one of the most disturbing things I'd ever seen in my entire life. Whoever had thought that
kid
character up
looks so
must have had one
terrified. I feel bad. I feel bad for Joe. You know he got touched.
Still as a statue for a moment, sensing our presence behind him. When we turned, we saw his milky white eyes.
He looked like he know what he doing wrong.
Y'all about to say milky white eyes like he is not built like a meth addict out this bitch.
This man looking like he know what he doing wrong. He know exactly what he doing.
And ran for the door. We weren't exactly terrified, but we were still spooked and laughing nervously to ourselves as we bounded back into the
said
street
they not
outside.
terrified. You're lying. If I see somebody come in and he over on his knees looking down at the kid and you looking up like, nah, bro.
Lights began to flash before our eyes. It was the cops, screaming down past us down the street before rushing into the house we'd just left. There was nothing remotely fake about that house. The old man was an escaped psychiatric patient who had lived in the house as a child. The newspapers said he busted out of the institution he was being held in before he walked 30 miles into town back to his childhood home. He must have thought the people living there were intruders. At knife point, he tied them up and tortured them till he finished them. We never found out what happened to the kids inside the house, and quite frankly,
that nigga all the way up. Took his fingers and all of that.
Damn. Probably sold the kids on Craigslist. Used the money to buy
toys. Adult toys.
I always wondered what it was. From the box, it seemed like a horrible board game. Until one day I found out what a Ouija board really is, and immediately dug it out of the closet. I insisted on my brother trying it out with me, and eventually got him to play along. We put our hands on the planchette, and I began asking the typical cliche questions like, is there anybody there? And, can you answer me? I did a little research that night to find out how to make Ouija boards work. Many people said online that the most ideal environment when using a Ouija board is in a dark room only lit by candles. So when my parents weren't home, I managed to gather like 6 or 7 candles and convinced my brother to try it one more time. I lit the candles and set them around the table in the dining room with all the lights out. We tried one more time. I asked again if there was anybody there. The planchette began to move. I told my brother to stop moving it, but he swore he wasn't. I told him to move his hand away, and he did. It kept moving. My brother thought I was messing with him, but I didn't pay attention. The planchette landed on the word yes. I was only 9, so I was legitimately shitting myself. My older brother had to take over. He asked the question, "Are you a good spirit?" There was a 5-second pause before my brother's hand moved along with the planchette to the word no. We both looked at each other, and at this point I ran to my room and shut the door behind me, but he continued on with the so-called game. I heard his muffled voice come from down in the dining room, when all of a sudden I heard him screaming at the top of his lungs.
It's at that point that he would come face to face with the harsh realities of survival of the fittest. And in this scenario, the definition of fit is getting the hell out of there the minute a ghost tells you it's not a good ghost. Why would you stay? And you're alone?
I ran back downstairs to see what was wrong. He was holding up his shirt, revealing a small open wound that almost looked like a claw mark. He told me to set the fireplace immediately, and I obeyed. He threw the thing in the fireplace and told me to never speak of what happened to anybody. We have never used a Ouija board since.
I bet. Yep, you'll learn today.
When I was a kid, my parents would sometimes bring me down to my aunt and uncle's place to stay for the weekend. Mainly, I'd spend time playing with my 2 cousins who were around the same age as me. They lived on a small farm with plenty of open space, and we could run around doing pretty much whatever we wanted. If we thought we could get away with it, the 3 of us would sometimes cross over to the neighboring farm about half a mile away. It had been abandoned for decades, with a scattering of derelict buildings and other structures still standing on the property, just begging to be explored. This was of course a gold mine for 3 adventurous young boys such as ourselves, especially after my cousins told me stories about the deaths that took place in the house. It was pretty classic fare. Man goes crazy, axe murders his entire family, hangs himself, returns every night as an angry spirit looking for new victims. Good, grisly stuff. Even at that age, I knew they were probably making it up, or at least embellishing old rumors. But seeing as how the setting lent itself so well to such tales, my turn to hide. I ran off for a flimsy brown barn that had living quarters on top, and climbed the stairs looking for a good spot. There was still furniture inside, and personal belongings lay scattered across the floor. I maneuvered over broken dishes, tattered clothes, and crumbling books, eventually coming to a small room with a closet. Jackpot. There were even long black dresses still hanging on the rod that I could hide behind. I stepped inside and managed to force shut the folding door. My only illumination was a slit of sunlight that shone through the crack in the door from a nearby window. I crouched down with knees tucked into chest and waited. Some time passed and there was still no sign of my seekers. I waited some more, debating if and when I should give myself up. After nearly an hour, this was starting to get boring. My head drooped. I awoke with a jerk. It was pitch black. Drowsy and confused, I forgot for a minute where I was or what I had been doing. As it came back to me, the realization that it was now nighttime and that I had been abandoned here filled me with sinking dread in the pit of my stomach. I tried to get up, but a sudden cramp in my calf kept me grounded. I squirmed about, waiting for it to pass, when I heard a door slamming shut downstairs, and instantly froze. One of my cousins? There was a brief period of silence, then footsteps at the bottom of the stairs. But not just footsteps, a thud too. After every other step. These weren't the footfalls of a child. They were slow, heavy, deliberate. I held my breath, praying they would go away. They did not. The noises continued to ascend. After another moment of silence, the walking resumed, this time along with a steady scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across the floorboards. The footsteps made their way through the debris and wandered aimlessly through the various rooms. I thought I could smell something faintly putrid.
The constant scrape sent cold shivers coursing down my arms and back. My worst fears were realized when the steps reached the bedroom doorway. They got closer and closer and finally stopped directly in front of the closet door. I couldn't see a thing. I waited for what seemed like an eternity. There were no more sounds now, and I was trying to build up enough courage to open the door and flee. 3 things happened simultaneously just then. I was bombarded with a smell I can only describe as fresh roadkill. I heard raspy breathing behind me in the dark closet, and I felt hot breath against the nape of my neck. That was enough for me to hurtle myself out from the confines of that nightmare space, relying on memory and scant moonlight to navigate through the darkened house. All the while, I heard footsteps chasing behind me, closing in with terrifying speed. It was a clumsy, torturous escape full of trips and bumps and blind stumbling. I never looked back, at least not until I had burst out the front door and into the country night. And when I did turn around, I saw absolutely nothing. There were no more footsteps and nobody was chasing me. That didn't stop me from running though, all the way back to my aunt and uncle's house. There was a police car in the driveway when I got back. My parents were there too, worried sick. Everybody demanded to know where I had been. Apparently, when my cousins still hadn't found me by evening, they'd returned home to tell their parents. Eventually, the police were called in and informed me that they had already scoured every building on the farm. The insinuation that I was lying about my whereabouts didn't go unnoticed. None of it made any sense. It wasn't until years later that one of my cousins filled in a final piece of the story. He and his brothers had spent hours searching for me like they said, but the part they didn't tell anyone was that they thought they spotted me in the window of the bedroom I was hiding in. And when they got closer, they saw that it wasn't me. A young boy neither of them recognized was smiling and waving down at them and gesturing for them to come upstairs. That's when they ran back home. All of this while I slept in the closet.
People wonder why I don't do haunted houses, I don't do scary stuff. Damn all that.
This story took place about 5 years ago on Christmas Eve night. It was around 1 in the morning, and I had just finished placing presents under the tree. I went upstairs to brush up and everything, then came back downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water before bed. My son Jake, who was 4 at the time, was standing by the stairs leading to the basement. I asked him what he was doing up so late. He pointed down the stairs and said, "Santa." I picked him up and carried him back to his room. I took a glass of water and went to bed. I woke up around an hour later to my son running down the hall outside my room. I sighed and got out of bed. As I was going down the stairs, I saw Jake by the tree looking at presents. Then he ran past me into the basement stairs again. He pointed down the stairs again. This time I looked down the stairwell, and my heart dropped as I saw a black figure sitting on the bottom step. I almost screamed, but I somehow held it in. I pulled my son quietly away from the basement door and closer to the front door of the house. I moved my hand away from my son's mouth to reach for the lock in the doorknob. I tried to pull the door open as quietly as possible, but it was pointless. The squeaky hinges let out the usual ear-piercing screeches, and I cringed in my mouth and eyes as I did. Suddenly, there were heavy stomps coming from up the basement stairs. I screamed and pushed open the storm door and practically threw Jake outside. I shut both doors behind us and we ran to the neighbor's house. I rang the doorbell as fast as possible, probably 30 times before they answered. After that, we went inside and stayed there and waited for the police. Whoever that person was gone though, as determined after the police conducted a thorough investigation of the house. I ended up lying to Jake, telling him that actually was Santa Claus, but a few years later, he remembered the incident and became a little more wise to what actually happened.
If that was me in that situation, I'd toss my kid down the stairs at the dude and ran. You can make another one, you know what I'm saying?
This happened about 5 years ago when I was 21. Me and my friend Seth got into this app which showed you ghosts. We'd go out ghost hunting, but nothing much would happen. Sometimes a dot would appear on one of our phones and it would say random words. We would ask, "How did you die?" and stuff like that. And sometimes the answers lined up, but it was mostly random. One night, around 2 a.m., Seth suggested going to the cemetery to see if the app picked anything up. I was hesitant, but I nervously agreed.
Should have been way more than hesitant, man. Going to the graveyard? Nothing good happens at the graveyard.
We started making our way through the neighborhood towards the cemetery. It was weird as the streets are normally lined with cars, but they were empty on this night. We walked down the middle of the road with the app running, but it wasn't picking anything up. We finally made it to the cemetery, which was a small, family-owned one where they only buried their own. Seth
and these sound effects, yo.
Went up to the gate and started shouting, hoping to get a response on the app, but nothing happened. I was standing in the road, feeling unsettled, when Seth starts yelling,
"Is that all you've got?"
I told him to stop disrespecting the dead and we should leave. He tried being funny, saying,
"Oh, I'll make them show up,"
and jumped the gate and started stomping on the graves while screaming,
"Come on, show us something."
All of a sudden, our phone said something at the same time. I looked down at my phone and it was there. We both just stood there, looking at each other, when 10 or so red dots appeared on the radar, and it said it again. When I looked back up from my phone, Seth was next to me. I said,
"We have got to go."
As soon as I said that, we could hear the street lights turning off one by one from the top of the street, getting closer to us. We took off running as fast as we could. We got about halfway into the neighborhood before running out of breath and having to stop. I felt like I was going to throw up from being scared and winded. Then I heard my phone say something. It was muffled, but I knew what it said. Being too scared to look at my phone, I looked at Seth, who looked terrified. He nodded at me to get my phone out, so I slowly pulled it out, and it said my name across the top. I turned my phone off and said,
"Screw this. I'm done."
We made our way back to my house and had a cigarette to calm down.
Oh, no, no, no!
We were talking about what just happened, almost not believing it, when I heard my phone again. This time, it was my sister's name.
Nigga, I'd have thrown that. This ain't Verizon. Yeet! You know what I mean? And then ran.
We just stood there, frozen, not saying a word, when it went off again and said my brother's name. I took my phone out, turned it on, and deleted the app. I asked Seth to stay the night, but he refused. I can't blame him. When I finally got to sleep that night, I dreamt a muffled voice repeating a word over and over. I started to wake up and the words became clearer. My phone was off, with the battery out. But when I turned it over, it was lit up with the app running. It had a red dot about 6 feet from me, still repeating.
Too close to the end to turn it off. Y'all lucky I'm lazy. You know what? It's never too late. Never say never. Justin Bieber. I think this...
I woke up the next morning and went to the bathroom. I had a razor-thin cut from my left shoulder to my right hip. I don't know what happened that night, and nothing has happened to me since. Needless to say, I don't mess with that kind of stuff anymore.
Man...
This is a short but terrifying story of something that happened when I was Snapchatting a friend. I'm pretty young, I'm only 13, still in middle school. A girl I really liked had just recently started snapping me selfie pictures, and we started messaging each other for a few nights. One night when I was watching TV, she sent me a snap of herself laying in her bed without a caption. I sent a message saying what's up. She sent another identical picture, this time with a caption saying not much, you? She set the timer to 10 seconds, so it gave me plenty of time to analyze the picture, including her bedroom in the background, and the dark outline of a person standing by her window. I quickly sent a response message, saying, "Is that your brother by the window?" She sent another identical snap, this time captioned, "What do you mean?" In this picture, the figure at the window was closer, and I could see a hand pressed up against the glass. I closed the snap before the timer even ran out so I could tell her quicker.
Well, now y'all know why I don't like scary videos.
Sir, and I could see a hand pressed up against the glass. I closed the snap before the timer even ran out so I could tell her quicker. I said, "There's somebody at your window, turn around." She opened my snap almost immediately, and then I didn't hear from her again on the app. I grew more and more worried as the minutes passed. I texted her a few times to no avail. I tried calling her a few times to no avail as well. I didn't know her house phone number, otherwise I would have called her parents. It wasn't until midnight when I was already laying in bed that she finally texted me back. She explained the whole situation. As soon as she looked at her window and saw the person standing there, she screamed, and that caused the person, who turned out to be a 20-something-year-old man, to open the window and jump into the room. From there, she ran to her parents' room and woke her dad, who went to her room to find nothing but an open window. It wasn't exactly a personal story of mine, but it freaks me out nonetheless, knowing that the only thing that saved my friend from whatever could have happened was the fact that I was able to see the window through her selfies, unbeknownst to the creeper at her window. This happened a week ago. Up until a few days
About a week
ago, I went to a small, local gym in my now previous New Jersey town called Black Bear Fitness. One day, I had the misfortune of running into some skinny, awkward, yet creepy-looking kid, probably 18 years old. He didn't look like he belonged in a gym at all. I had headphones in and I was doing my set when I heard him saying something to me, but it was muffled by the music.
Bruh, apparently I need to start dancing more, because even though I was scared crapless by the 2 previous videos to this one, just listening to some music in my head, dancing a little bit made me feel way better. That's why I'm like, you know what I mean? I feel I'm not scared no more.
I was already annoyed with this kid, given that he was breaking an unwritten rule of the gym. Don't try to talk to somebody when they're doing their sets. I took my time finishing my set, and then took my headphones out to ask if he needed something. Then he started acting like I looked familiar, but right away I knew this kid was just trying some pathetic attempt at making friends. I assured him I didn't, but the kid wouldn't stop talking to me. I'll skip most of the conversation, but eventually he actually asked me for my Instagram and Snapchat, weirdly enough, and for whatever reason I gave them to him. Instead of just saying something like, "Buddy, I'm trying to work out," or "I don't have social media." After I gave him my Snapchat and Instagram, however, I did kind of urge him to let me resume my workout. He finally seemed to get the message and walked away. Not without saying bye like 3 times though. That night I got a snap on my phone saying "from Sean." I immediately sighed and said, "Oh no." Just wondering why the hell the kid would snap me. I opened the snap, and the kid was in a creepy, weird pose, face way too close to the camera, with his head resting in his hand and a half smile on his face. The text over the picture was "Hey" with 2 Y's. I muttered the words, "What the fuck?" For the record, I'm a guy, which made this even more weird.
My thought process was, I've had enough of this loser already. I'm gonna remove him and make it clear I don't want to talk if I see him at the gym again. And so I did. I removed him minutes after he sent that snap. I'm sure not even a minute later, again a message popped up on my phone saying Snapchat from Sean. I waited a few minutes before opening it. This one was even creepier. Now the kid was sitting up on his bed, no smile, more of a surprised, angry expression. The text over the image said, "Why did you remove me?" Now I went as far as to block him, meaning he couldn't snap me anymore. And that was that. I threw my phone on the desk and sighed out of relief. Half an hour later, my phone goes off, saying Sean added you as a friend, and then Snapchat from Sean. He actually made a new account. I opened the snap and felt my heart drop. It was a picture of my front lawn. The text over it, "Answer me, bitch."
Run for your life. Or get buck naked immediately. See, teach you guys a little something about self-defense. Dudes don't like piss, you know, so if you pull yours out in a purely self-defense situation, you should be able to get him not to want to come within like 5 feet of you. You know, actually, to tell you the truth, you gonna have to chase him, because he gonna run. Now, in the unfortunate event that he starts walking closer while you're buck naked, you can pretty much bend over and put your face in between your own legs and kiss your ass goodbye, because he's about that life. I don't know what life that is, but he's about it.
First thing I could think of was, how did he find my address?
Not a gun? Word?
Then I realized, Snapchat made that new map feature that lets you see where your friends are. Somehow I had the balls to open the window to see outside. It was clear out there. I shut the window and the blinds and started considering calling 911. It was the sound of taps on the window. I took a deep breath.
This crap got me nervous, man. I ain't even gonna lie.
And with one swift motion, I pulled up the blind and the window at the same time and pulled the kid into my room by his neck. I punched him in the face a few times before he was out cold. Now I called 911. By the time they arrived, he was awake, cursing me out, promising he'd be back and kill me. The cops heard it all. I didn't even have to make a case. The kid was an idiot. Luckily, the timing of this worked out well, because I just moved a couple days ago out of state. Only thing that worries me, I don't want to have to make a new Snapchat account, but anytime somebody new adds me on the app, I'll never know if it's secretly that Sean kid again.
To keep it real, man, you should never add randoms on there in general, man. If you meet somebody in real life and they're acting weird already, don't give them your social media. Just run. Just run.
So this happened a few months ago. I'm 26. I was at JFK Airport in New York with 5 friends. All of us were about to fly down to Florida to spend the week in a beach house. We had a few more minutes to kill in the airport before we would board our flight, and I really had to go to the bathroom all of a sudden. I was baffled to see a line out the door for the bathroom.
The way he animates this stuff with like the eyes and stuff, it immediately kind of messes with me a little bit. I'm getting better though. You know, that's one thing I can say through watching a lot of scary stuff. I'm getting better at not being scared, which helps being in this big ass house at night, you know?
I noticed a janitor walking by, so I asked her if there was another bathroom nearby that wouldn't be so crowded. She laughed and told me she shouldn't really be telling people, but there was another bathroom past the door she was pointing at, down a narrow flight of stairs and to the left.
I thanked her because she was extremely nice and followed the directions she gave me. Sure enough, behind that door that no one would think to open was a small stairway that led down to a really poorly lit, skinny hallway. It was so narrow that if two people were to pass by each other, one person would have to stand against the wall to make room. I found the bathroom right away. The door was extremely heavy and hard to push. Also, the lights were on inside of the bathroom, and it was filthy in there. It was evident that nobody ever really came in there to clean. Now, this is a little...
Man, this looks like some crap off of Silent Hill PT. I'll put the link in the description for y'all to check that out. But man, I played that, and I don't know how I made it out, is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
A little embarrassing to mention, but when I go to the bathroom in public places, I always try to make sure nobody else is around to possibly hear me going. So after checking the stall to see that it was unoccupied, I went back into the hallway for a second to take a look down both directions. To the left, there was somebody standing at the end of the hall, in a dark, unlit section of the hallway. It was a disturbing sight to say the least. All I could do was awkwardly pull my head back into the bathroom and try to pretend we didn't see each other. I went into the stall and just stood there biting my fingers for a minute, dreading the thought of that door opening. And of course, it did. I saw the man's black shoes under the stall door as he walked to the stall next to mine. He shut the door, and then there was silence. No sound of the man unzipping his fly or sitting down, nothing. I realized I didn't really have to go anymore, and went to unlock the stall door. That's when I looked up and saw the man's head peering over the stall, looking at me.
I just hit the back of my Achilles heel so hard on the bottom of this gaming chair, bro. That's something else that really helps. Cold water. Now, luckily enough for me, this water is not cold because I didn't refrigerate it like I was supposed to.
I nearly had a heart attack as my screams bounced off the walls of the tiny bathroom. I ran back up those damn steps and out that door, and then casually walked back over to my friends. I was breathing heavily, but nobody seemed to notice. I didn't tell anyone just because it was embarrassing, and I didn't want my friends to make fun of me in any way. I know, I guess that seems stupid now. We went on to have our Florida vacation and all had a good time. Of course, the thought of that creepy man haunted me every night that week.
I was 19 years old at the time, working at a sketchy motel. The motel was pretty run down, and the majority of people who stayed there were locals that were just doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. Let's just say the cops came by multiple times a week.
This is America!
And as a housekeeper who got to clean up their nasty, vomit-smelling rooms afterwards. One afternoon, I was working as a housekeeper in the second building of the motel on the backside furthest from the office. I hated working over there because it not only had the most worn-down rooms, but it was always pretty vacant over there and way too quiet for comfort. I began cleaning one of my last rooms and wanted to get done in a hurry because it was getting late. I was washing the mirror in the room that I was cleaning when all of a sudden, I saw a man in the reflection staring at me. He was mid-50s, dirty, with long, greasy hair. Startled, I screamed, "Oh my God."
Y'all gonna laugh at me, but I've seen this before.
I told him he scared me. The room I was currently cleaning was vacant, so there was no reason why this man should have been in there watching me clean. However, we just had a meeting on customer satisfaction, and my boss was really pressuring us to be more polite and help the guests any way we could. Sir?" I asked him cautiously. Can I get you anything? Towels?" The man just stared back at me with a crooked grin and held out his hands to me. I thought maybe he was handing me a tip for cleaning his room earlier, but when I looked down, I saw he was holding a $100 bill. Alarm.
Nigga, that is a tip. What you talking about? I used to be a guest room attendant for Bellagio, so I did the same thing she did. 13 rooms a day, never go back, literal slave labor, but without the heat. And $100, man, I think the most tip I ever got was one that I had to go into somebody's luggage to get. Like, I was kind of like a Robin Hood of Bellagio, you know what I mean? I would steal from the rich, but I would give it to me. Like, it's the same concept, but just not. I wonder if I could get in trouble for telling that story now, though. But like, I'm gonna have to tell that story on my animated channel, man. God, jeez. Link in the description down below for the animated channel, by the way.
Alarm started going off in my head. No one tips $100 on a $40 a night room. The man just smiled and said his name was Terry. He said he was staying in the room next door with his wife Sherry and sort of joked about their names rhyming. He smelled like car oil and alcohol. When I asked him why he was trying to hand me $100, he laughed deep in his throat and said, "Me and my wife were watching you, and we just wanted to have fun with you." I felt like my heart jumped into my throat. No, I can't do that, sir, I'm sorry. I wanted to run out of the room screaming, but he was blocking the door, my only exit. The man smiled again, taking on a softer tone of voice, and invited me to come into his room to meet his wife, just to talk as friends.
You have to say yes, and then run when you get out the door, while acting like you're following him. You tell him no, then he might try to take some shit. But if you tell him yes, and act like you're down, then you get more options. Don't ask me how I know this. Let's just say I've done some things that I'm not proud of.
I nervously told him no again, and that I had a lot of work to do for the day. I prayed to God he would just go away, and eventually he did. He grunted and walked off in what I assumed to be the direction of his room. My mind began racing. There is no wife, I thought. This man could try and kidnap me. I was 110 pounds at the time and not very strong. He could easily overpower me. I locked the
Bro, what's with the sound effects? That's how we doing? That's what we doing in the streets right now?
room from the inside and went directly to the phone to call my manager at the front desk, but the phone wasn't working. Adrenaline began pumping through my veins, and despite what I was always told not to do, I was panicking. Did he cut the line? No, I thought. This is a crappy motel. It happens all the time. But I just have to get out. I remembered that I had my cell phone out on my housekeeping card, but that was outside the locked door. I'd have to open the door to get it. I cautiously opened the door to the room that I was cleaning and peered out. I didn't see anyone, so I frantically began searching my cart for my cell phone. I was wasting too much time looking for it, so I just decided to run as fast as I could and make a break for the front desk in the office. Then from behind me, I heard the man again, but this time he was screaming to someone else, "She's running, she's getting away." I could hear his shoes slamming against the pavement after me. I quickly turned the corner, grabbed my keycard, and let myself into a stockroom and locked the door. Within moments, I heard the sound of the dirty guy and someone else running outside, searching for me. I stayed in that stockroom for 30 minutes shaking until I could no longer hear him searching for me. I finally got the courage to run the rest of the way to the front desk. When I made it there, I collapsed into my boss's arms and he called the police. The man and whoever else was in the room with him peeled out before the cops could arrive, and I was beyond shaken up. According to the police who ran a search, this wasn't the first time he had done something like this, and he was actually wanted for sexual assault, gross sexual imposition, and in the past was once charged with rape. A few weeks later, on what happened to be my birthday, this guy was caught. A few weeks after that, I quit. I will never again work at another motel.
Shoot, a few weeks, nigga, I'd have been gone within the month. Don't judge me. Don't you ever judge me. Last one, y'all.
It was approaching the end of summer, and my friends and I wanted to do some cool, mischievous things before going back to school. So, we had the genius idea one night to sneak into a nearby community pool. It was actually only a couple blocks away. It's right smack in the middle of a residential area, so instead of sitting on a main road or something, it actually just sat around a bunch of houses on a quiet road. During a hot day, the little parking lot would be full and the spot would be bustling. But at 1 in the morning, the place was of course dead. There's obviously a big fence surrounding the whole front entrance, as well as a cage that gets closed up when the place closes.
so our best way was to get in through the side. We snuck into the backyard of a neighboring house and hopped the fence over to the pool.
Bruh, when I was living in Joshua Village projects out here, me and like 6 people did the same exact thing, and my sister got caught by the police. Yes, I left her there because she kept acting like, oh, I don't care about no police. I'm like, nigga, I ain't trying to go back to jail again. Damn this. And we left her there, and she got arrested. Decisions.
It was as easy as that. The 4 of us took off our shirts and jumped into the pool, which in retrospect wasn't smart, since any of the neighbors could have heard the splashes and just called the police. But we were dumb high schoolers. It was very, very dark within that whole enclosing. This pool had no lights, which is why it closed at sunset. James, Courtney, and Alyssa were on the other side of the pool, as I was just kind of doing my own thing at first, swimming around and getting my face wet. I saw Alyssa get out of the pool shortly after and run away. I swam over to see what was going on. She was just going to the water fountain, though. The 3 of us just bopped around in the water for a bit, and eventually we heard Alyssa jump back into the pool from the other side. It was too dark to see much more than her black hair covering her face. But just then we heard Alyssa playfully call something to us as she was walking back to the pool. The 3 of us in the pool looked at each other. I know they were doing the same thing as me, counting heads. There were 3 of us on this side of the pool, and here came Alyssa walking over to our side. So who was that on the other side? Alyssa got in, but the 3 of us were distracted, looking at the head bopping around the water across the pool. James said across the pool, "Who is that?" Not even 2 seconds later, the head went underwater and disappeared from view. We took this time to whisper to each other, mostly things like, what should we do? What if that's security? And should we run? Suddenly I felt something grab my leg with force and tried pulling me down into the water. I kicked, splashed, and yelled for help. James came over to pull me out of the pool, while the girls were already running for it, screaming. It wasn't until I got to the stairs of the pool that the grip on my leg was released and I was free. We hopped the same fence we climbed over to get in and ran all the way back to Alyssa's house. I was convinced that whoever that was a security guard. That is, until they literally tried to pull me under the water. We don't know what to think. There are a few possibilities. Maybe it was just another kid messing with us, maybe it was a security guard who went way too far, or most likely, it was a dangerous person who had ill intent. My name is Ethan, and I'm a photographer. I took a trip last year with my wife to the Colorado mountains for an art project. My wife is also an avid skier, so she talked me into adding skiing into the trip. We had the option to book a room at a ski resort or rent out a private log cabin. The second one seemed more romantic, so I picked that one. Plus, it didn't hurt that it was cheaper. The cabin was nothing luxurious or anything. It was a single-floor, 4-room little thing. A 2-person bedroom, a small living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It may have been small, but the actual idea of being secluded in a warm log cabin during a blizzard was amazing. However, the storm was interfering with the cable signal, so we didn't have much to do this one particular evening. It was just starting to get dark out at this point, but there was still a decent amount of light outside, so I thought it would be perfect for getting a few shots and videos in the blizzard for backgrounds and wallpapers. I told my wife I'd be back within 10 minutes and slipped on my boots and coat. The moment I stepped outside and shut the door, I noticed footsteps leading up to the door in the snow that had blown under the wooden awning. I could see the prints doubled, as whoever left them there turned and went the opposite direction. I was freaked the fuck out, but I wasn't about to go inside and scare my
That scare anybody.
Wife. I decided to give in to my curiosity and followed the prints to the right side of the cabin. Right away, I noticed that they led to the bedroom window. My heart froze in fear when I saw this. I could see my wife sitting on the bed using her iPad. She noticed me and I waved. She laughed. I continued to follow the footprints around the cabin to the other side. They led to the living room window on the other side. Someone was stalking us, but how long ago was the question? I found myself standing there for a good minute asking myself if I should follow the footprints anymore. For whatever
Bruh, you need to go buy you a gun is what you need to do.
reason, I decided I would. They were now leading away from the cabin. I knew I was following the prints to where this person was going, not coming from, simply by the boot marks. I followed the prints away from the opening and into the trees. That was where I saw him. A man wearing a black coat facing a tree, slouched down looking at the ground. He was still as a statue, and I could see the snow piling up on his hood and shoulders. I froze in my tracks, trying not to make a sound.
I bet you'd wish you'd gotten that gun now.
I would have thought to ask him if he needed help otherwise, but this guy was just standing there not doing anything, like some kind of deranged freak. I started to gradually move backwards without even turning around, making sure this man didn't turn around or notice me. When I got at a visual distance, I turned around and stomped through the snow back to the cabin. When I slammed the door shut, my wife came over to see what was wrong. I saw worry in her eyes. I guess she saw the worry in mine. She knew I saw something, and after a few minutes of harassment, I finally told her what I saw. She immediately started packing her things, telling me we're leaving right away. I told her no, we're not going anywhere.
No,
I would not get a refund
No! I would have left him if I was the wife.
for leaving early, and I wasn't about to up and leave just because some weird guy was walking around outside. She made a point of locking both locks on the door and making sure all of the windows were sealed shut. For the rest of the night, we read stuff on our iPads. I reviewed the pictures and videos I had taken so far. We turned out the lights early as there wasn't much else to do. What if he's still out there? I remember my wife asking me. There's no way he's still out there, I then assured her. Listening to the wind blowing outside, along with the small flakes of snow hitting the windows, was strangely relaxing, and I knew I'd be able to fall asleep quickly. Except if it wasn't for the knock at the bedroom window. We were both still awake, and we both knew it was a knock from a person. I ushered my wife out of bed and out into the living room without turning on any lights. There was nothing to use as a weapon whatsoever. Our only option was to run before something might happen.
Oh look, you should have left like your wife said, or just got the gun like I said, but...
I told my wife we'd have to forget our luggage and make a dash for the Jeep. We slipped on our boots and coats in the dark in a matter of seconds, and when we heard a knock at the living room window from the opposite side of our car, we took that opportunity to run. I pressed the unlock button, so grateful I chose to have remote locks on my Wrangler, and we hopped in. The car started with ease, and as soon as the headlights flashed on, the man was standing facing the log cabin on our side now. Not a window, just facing the wall of the cabin in the same position I had seen him in earlier, as if he were hiding his face. We drove to the nearby ski resort without much trouble in the Jeep. We stayed there for the night and went back the next day to the log cabin to collect our things we left behind. He wasn't there.
Always make sure to keep the toast on you. You know what I'm saying? If you're going out of anywhere, especially if it's gonna be in the middle of nowhere. Oh, you.
A couple weeks ago, my dad came home and pitched me a small job offer. One of his coworkers was going away for a few days and needed somebody he could trust to watch over his house. The reason my dad pitched this to me was because the man's house has a big CCTV system, basically a camera in every room, and then an operating desk where all screens could be watched on a big monitor. And I'm a computer science major, so my dad just always assumes that I know how to work anything technological. The man told my dad that he'd pay me $200 for the 2 days just to watch the house. Whatever that meant. My dad drove me to the house and introduced me to the man, whose name doesn't matter. The man made it seem like he preferred I stay in the upstairs room with the monitors as opposed to roaming the house all day. That was fine with me though. So when I wasn't eating, I was mostly just sitting in that room with the TV on in the background.
Why did that box in the freezer say fish dicks on it? Is that a real food? Like, is that like a legitimate snack of choice to pass the time? I don't know why that's so funny to me.
And doing schoolwork on my laptop. Ironically, the thing I was doing the least was keeping an eye on the monitors. Night came. I started wondering where in the house I should sleep, since surprisingly, we hadn't discussed that. So I sat back down at the desk and looked at all the different rooms on the screens to see which rooms had beds or couches. I noticed something I wasn't expecting to notice though. The back screen door was open downstairs. I didn't remember it being open. I looked through each and every camera screen in a panic. In the living room, a closet door was open. This one I knew wasn't open earlier. I texted my dad to call the man and ask him if he came back home. Meanwhile, I continued watching the screen. On the grainy, dark image, a tall person who resembled only a black shadow on the screen stepped out from the closet. I pulled my arms off the desk as I covered my mouth with my hands in shock. As I did this, however, my left elbow pulled some heavy object from the desk onto the floor, creating a big thud. The person in the image very clearly moved their head up to the ceiling as a response to the noise. They went for the stairs, walking up very, very slowly, step by step. Meanwhile, I got a text back from my dad saying, "No, he's not. I just spoke to him half an hour ago. Why?" I got so caught up in my phone texting my dad to send help that I didn't even pay attention to the monitor. There was a knock at the door. I looked at it and then the screens. The first screen I laid my eyes on was the one showing the person outside the door to the room I was in. When I remembered that door had no lock, the only thing I could think to do was jump out the window into the bushes below.
Black people! Telling you, man, that shit's a superpower. Shit gets real, bruh. I don't care what I gotta jump out of. Cars, windows, women's vaginas. Like, you gotta jump, whatever you gotta pull out and jump out of. Living is important where I'm from.
I ran halfway down the block and then stopped when my dad called me. I had him call his friend and ask him if he was expecting somebody in the house. The man said he had no relatives or friends who had his key or would ever let themselves into his home. So he called the cops and had them review the footage. I got to watch all of it, and it showed everything. From the moment the intruder broke the glass to the backyard door, to the moment I jumped out the window and him running away shortly after. The intruder was never found. The footage was just too dark to identify his face.
I was walking near a police-patrolled park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I went down a short side street in order to loop back down my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still, until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved, until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked and I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point that I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely
Nigga! You know what? I'd have got buck naked. Say what you want, but crazy person will fight a nigga with a knife. Nobody messes with a dude who's got his balls out. That's real.
frozen as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What the f*** do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper.
I had to bleep that out.
What the f***? Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice. That only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started dance-walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go, until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him got bigger and bigger. He was coming back my way. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of my way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months.
Okay, so I thought the footsteps was the smiling dude. I got scared.
Months after that, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see.
Yeah, that story was too well done and too well animated.
So me and a couple of my buddies went camping last summer alongside the Willamette River. We actually had a decent hike into the deep end of the woods. We did some night fishing, listening to music, and basically drank to the point where everything was funny later in the night. I would guess we finally called it a night somewhere past 2 a.m. I shared a tent with one of my buds while the other two shared another tent. We heard them laughing about something. At first we laughed at the sound of their laughing, but it soon got annoying and we yelled for them to shut up. One of them responded, "It isn't us." I sat up, startled at the response. I came to realize that it was the sound of only one person laughing, and it didn't sound like either one of my friends. Even in my drunk state, I realized how odd it was for somebody to be out this far in the woods so late at night. The laughing gradually got closer and louder to our campout. My friend shot up and looked at me with a worried look on his face. I heard my other friends scream over to us that they were getting freaked out. As the laughing got even closer, I could make it out very clearly to be the laugh of a male, probably in his 30s or 40s. He sounded like he was as drunk as us, messing around with friends, but we only heard his laugh, nobody else. There was something indescribably creepy about his laugh too, as if it was missing something to it. You had to be there to understand what I mean. The laughing was now just at the edge of our campsite. But we couldn't hear any footsteps at all. Now that may not seem like a big deal. It was impossible to move through that without making noise. And finally, all of a sudden, the laughing stops completely. We had no idea where whoever that was standing, as he hadn't made a single stepping sound. We sat there in silence looking at each other. My friend was clearly freaking out, but he was keeping it together the best he could. Finally, something broke the silence. The sound of something rubbing against the cottony fabric of the tent. We saw the outline of a hand through the moonlight, pressing on the tent. We both screamed at the top of our lungs before getting out of the tent. We ran as fast as we could through the woods, our other friends following us. After about 5 minutes of running, we somehow found our car. I actually puked from running so much before taking the wheel. I don't condone drinking and driving, but I still believe we were just in this situation. By far the most horrific experience of my life. No idea who or what the hell that was, or what they wanted.
Yo, damn all that. Damn all of that.
I was having a horrifying dream, possibly the most disturbing nightmare of my life. I was in my house, or the closest thing to my house that my dream could produce. Ironically enough, I was in bed in this dream, or at least I can only start remembering past the point of my lying in bed, and all of a sudden, the sound came from downstairs. I walked downstairs in the dark, not turning on any lights, to where I thought the sound was coming from. I was on my middle floor now. The dream was telling me to go downstairs to my laundry room, and so I did. But as I got there, expecting the noise to be louder and closer, it sounded like it was just as far as before. Now I was going upstairs to the kitchen, and it's strange, outside of every window was complete blackness, not general nighttime darkness. There was nothingness. I think all that existed in this dream was my house. Now my dream started to suggest that the banging sounds were coming from upstairs, so I went back upstairs and was eventually led to the attic door. It was surely beyond that door. I opened it. There was an old woman standing by a bunch of boxes. She was slowly but loudly slamming her hand on one of the boxes, producing an unnatural sound. I tried to quietly step back away from the attic, but the old woman turned around, opened her mouth twice as wide as anyone humanly could, reached out her arms, began to scream, and leaped toward me. That's when I woke up. I thought it was just a horrific dream, but when I heard a bang coming from downstairs, a bang similar to what I heard in my dream, I felt my heart completely drop. On my way downstairs, there was another bang. It was the front door. I got the butcher knife from my knife holder in the kitchen and crouched behind the door. I was waiting for the next time he would pound on the door and I would warn him to go away. I waited for a good minute in silence and finally decided to take a quick look through the window. There was somebody standing in my driveway. I couldn't tell if he was facing me or looking at me or not, but he was surely the one who was pounding on my door at 4 in the morning. He walked away down the sidewalk moments after he must have noticed me. The pounding on my door was the kind of pounding you would expect from someone trying to break in a door, not to get a house owner's attention. I thought it was just crazy and horrifying that the pounding and banging from this potential robber or killer didn't wake me up, rather became the key point to a horrifying dream.
I can't take too much more of this.
I was 19 years old at the time, working at a sketchy motel. The motel was pretty run down, and the majority of people who stayed there were locals that were just doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. Let's just say the cops came by multiple times a week. I worked as both a
This is America.
front desk person, checking in these creeps all hours of the night, and as a housekeeper who got to clean up their nasty, vomit-smelling rooms afterwards. One afternoon, I was working as a housekeeper in the second building of the motel on the backside furthest from the office. I hated working over there because it not only had the most worn down rooms, but it was always pretty vacant over there and way too quiet for comfort. I began cleaning one of my last rooms and wanted to get done in a hurry because it was getting late. I was washing the mirror in the room that I was cleaning when all of a sudden, I saw a man in the reflection staring at me. He was mid-50s, dirty, with long, greasy hair. Startled, I screamed, "Oh my God." I told him he scared me. The room I was currently cleaning was vacant, so there was no reason why this man should have been in there watching me clean. However, we just had a meeting on customer satisfaction, and my boss was really pressuring us to be more polite and help the guests any way we could. Sir?" I asked him cautiously. Can I get you anything? Towels?" The man just stared back at me with a crooked grin and held out his hands to me. I thought maybe he was handing me a tip for cleaning his room earlier, but when I looked down, I saw he was holding a $100 bill. Alarms started going off in my head. No one tips $100 on a $40 a night room. The man just smiled and said his name was Terry. He said he was staying in the room next door with his wife Sherry and sort of joked about their names rhyming. He smelled like car oil and alcohol. When I asked him why he was trying to hand me $100, he laughed deep in his throat and said, "Me and my wife were watching you, and we just wanted to have fun with you." I felt like my heart jumped into my throat. No, I can't do that, sir, I'm sorry." I wanted to run out of the room screaming, but he was blocking the door, my only exit. The man smiled again, taking on a softer tone of voice, and invited me to come into his room to meet his wife, just to talk as friends. I nervously told him no again, and that I had a lot of work to do for the day. I prayed to God he would just go away, and eventually he did. He grunted and walked off in what I assumed to be the direction of his room. My mind began racing. There is no wife, I thought. This man could try and kidnap me. I was 110 pounds at the time and not very strong. He could easily overpower me. I locked the room from the inside and went directly to the phone to call my manager at the front desk, but the phone wasn't working. Adrenaline began pumping through my veins, and despite what I was always told not to do, I was panicking. Did he cut the line? No, I thought. This is a crappy motel. It happens all the time. But I just have to get out. I remembered that I had my cell phone out on my housekeeping card, but that was outside the locked door. I'd have to open the door to get it. I cautiously opened the door to the room that I was cleaning and peered out. I didn't see anyone, so I frantically began searching my cart for my cell phone. I was wasting too much time looking for it, so I just decided to run as fast as I could and make a break for the front desk in the office. Then from behind me, I heard the man again, but this time he was screaming to someone else, "She's running, she's getting away." I could hear his shoes slamming against the pavement after me. I quickly turned the corner, grabbed my keycard, and let myself into a stockroom and locked the door. Within moments, I heard the sound of the dirty guy and someone else running outside, searching for me. I stayed in that stockroom for 30 minutes shaking until I could no longer hear him searching for me. I finally got the courage to run the rest of the way to the front desk. When I made it there, I collapsed into my boss's arms and he called the police. The man and whoever else was in the room with him peeled out before the cops could arrive, and I was beyond shaken up. According to the police who ran a search, this wasn't the first time he had done something like this, and he was actually wanted for sexual assault, gross sexual imposition, and in the past was once charged with rape. A few weeks later, on what happened to be my birthday, this guy was caught. A few weeks after that, I quit. I will never again work at another motel.
God, jeez. Dude, damn all that. Hell no. I used to work at a hotel, actually. I was working at Bellagio. And you guys might remember the story about how I walked into that room and it was a naked white woman sleeping spread eagle on the bed. Wouldn't have been as bad if the room literally was not slathered in used condoms. And I hadn't previously seen like 4 white dudes walking down the hallway high-fiving each other about something that they were happy about. And it's at that moment that I realized what they were happy about. Luckily enough for me, I was able to back out of the room before she woke up. You know what I mean? Because like a black dude in a room, buck-ass naked white woman Spread eagle, it's not a good look. Never a good look.
Looking for a new roommate is always a daunting task. Even though you interview and take the time to get to know that person, you don't truly find out who they are until you start living with them. I had begun searching for a roommate after I decided to leave my current residency. I was contacted a couple of hours after placing an ad on the Facebook Marketplace. The message read,
"Hey Chris, I'll be moving out of my current apartment this August and I'm looking to room with someone new, as my roommates are moving to California this year. I'm 27 and I'm currently going to school. When I'm not at school, I enjoy hiking and watching movies. I also apprentice at a taxidermy shop on the days I don't have class. Hope that's not weird. It's always been a fun hobby of mine. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. Have a great day, Lunaire."
Back shots. I'd have definitely did that one. No, Bunny.
I would pay most of the rent if you just...
No, never. No, don't do that. He will pay most of the rent and spread that open for your boy.
Oh, so she don't get no discount.
Absolutely not. No. I've always noticed some of my best relationships with women when I hit them. You know what I mean? You, what?
You said hit him.
No. No. And now back to the video. Snow bunnies.
This reaction after reading the message was to check
That's
her profile.
even worse. So,
She
alright,
was a
you know
medium
what?
height, had long, messy blonde hair and green eyes. In her profile picture, I saw her standing with a man and a woman shoulder to shoulder. They each adorned goofy grins and held up peace signs. Under the photo, the caption read, "Love my roommates." I smiled to myself and decided to send her a message back.
That's the smile of a man knowing that he is probably going to be inside of her.
He's thinking about the first thing I'm getting as soon as she comes into my room.
Edit that out. I'm going to edit that out.
As we hoisted various objects to the second floor of our new apartment. It took us a couple days to get everything out of the moving trucks and into our new place, but as soon as we did, a wave of relief washed over our sweat-drenched and sore bodies. After a couple more hours of rearranging, we each grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on the porch. We reminisced about old 90s cartoons and what video games we obsessed over as kids, and as the sun started to set, I truly felt relaxed and confident that things were going to work out. A week later, I started a new job for a construction company that was owned by a good friend of mine. As I was getting ready, I heard the front door swing open. I walked into the living room to see Lunaire and her friend David sliding in a large box. "What you got there?" I asked. Through a strained grunt, she replied,
"I bought a freezer to store some of the animals I'm planning on using in my taxidermy work. I hope that's alright."
I was obviously hesitant at first, as there was no mention of this happening in the first place, but I eventually accepted and returned to my room to continue getting ready for work. I came home at around 9 p.m. after having a couple of beers with friends and noticed that the freezer was nestled snugly in the lower part of the pantry. A low hum could be heard reverberating off of the inner walls. I was curious to see what was inside, but didn't want to intrude on Lunaire's business, so I went into my room and changed into more comfortable clothing. After changing, I came back out into the kitchen and started making a sandwich. I opened the fridge and grabbed what I needed. As I turned around, I stubbed my toe on the edge of the island countertop and let out a long, exasperated grunt. Through my frustration, I slammed the fridge door shut and checked my toe to see if there was any bleeding. As I raised my head back up, I was greeted by a shadowy figure. Lunaire was standing in the doorway leading to her room. The darkness behind her almost seemed to envelop her.
"Is everything okay?"
she said in a deadpan tone. "Shit, yeah, I'm sorry. I just slammed my toe into the corner of the countertop as I was making a sandwich. I hope I didn't wake you."
"It's fine,"
she said, in the same deflated tone as before. She then turned around and walked back into the darkness of her room. I could tell that she was pissed, so I quietly made my sandwich and retreated back to my room as well, only hearing the low hum from the freezer as I closed my door. I had the next day off, so I was able to sleep in a little longer than usual. When I finally emerged from my room, I walked into the kitchen to make breakfast. As I opened the refrigerator, I noticed that the light wasn't turning on and there was a lack of cold air escaping from inside. I turned around and flipped the light switch to confirm my suspicion. Sure enough, the power was out. I muttered under my breath. I walked over to Lunaire's room and knocked on her door to tell her about the power outage if she didn't already know, but there was no answer. I then remembered that she had classes that day and probably wasn't home. I walked back to the kitchen and past the pantry. As I did, I slipped on the floor but was able to catch myself on the countertop. "What the?" I angrily exclaimed as I looked down at the floor trying to figure out what I had slipped on. It was blood. It had started to leak from the corner of the freezer and pool onto the floor. I quickly tried to open the freezer to find out the cause of the viscous liquid, but then I noticed that it had a padlock attached to it. I don't remember seeing that before. I ran out to my car and grabbed my toolbox from the back seat. I approached the freezer and set my tools down on the nearby countertop. I then pulled out a small pair of bolt cutters and snapped through the metal of the padlock. It fell to the ground with a large thud. I creaked open the top of the freezer and was greeted with a putrid stench that permeated my nostrils. I quickly pinched my nose and walked away gagging in response. "I guess I should have realized that was gonna happen," I muttered to myself in between gags. After gaining my composure, I grabbed some gloves from under the sink and started taking inventory. I could see a couple of dead birds and plastic bags wedged into the corners of the freezer. I took each bag out and set them in the trash can nearby. That's when I noticed that the blood was coming from the corner of the larger black bag. I don't know why, but I decided to open the top of the bag and peer inside. I was greeted by large eyes, a swollen black tongue surrounded by cracked and bloated lips,
why do I look like her?
and the matted hair
Was it
of a
her?
human
Is
head.
it her? I don't know.
I swiftly dropped the bag and fell backwards onto the floor. My breathing had ceased to exist, and I grabbed the trash can next to me and expelled my disgust into it. I then ran out the door, got into my car, and called the police. As I sat in the interrogation room with a blanket over my shoulders, I couldn't help but think about the face I'd seen. It looked so familiar. That's when it finally hit me. I pulled out my phone and looked at Lunaire's profile picture. It was her old roommate. The one she said was moving to California. When the detective entered the room, she started the questioning process, asking me if I started noticing any weird behavioral occurrences around the apartment. Yeah, I stubbed my toe the other day and she creepily stood in the doorway. It seemed like she was pissed, but for some reason I had a strange feeling like she was concerned about something. That's when I connected the dots. She didn't come out into the kitchen because she heard me stub my toe. She came out into the kitchen because she thought I slammed the freezer instead of the fridge. A cold sweat started to form on my forehead as my surroundings became blurred. I could hear a low whine slowly starting to cover up the words of concern from the detective. As my vision started to clear, I could see another officer enter the room and whisper something into her ear as he handed her a piece of paper. "Do you have somewhere you could stay at?" she asked. "I mean, I was planning on staying with my parents. They live about 30 minutes outside of town." "Okay," she paused. "Listen, I don't want to worry you, but we found this picture inside of your apartment." She slid the piece of paper across the table, and I immediately felt like someone kicked me in the chest. The head of Lunaire's other roommate sat on the chair. In the background, scrawled on the wall in blood, read, "Love my roommates."
Nah,
All
she
of them.
look. That's when I find out where she at and drop kick her real quick.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's your boy BlastphamousHD, Twisms, and or something equivalent.